Welcome back to HPP, the podcast that covers college basketball and the NBA draft inside and out. I am Rich Harris, and thank you for joining us again. Today, I'm joined by Cam Reel, and we'll soon be joined by Doc Llewellyn. Jake Kopsick is taking a couple weeks off because University of Pennsylvania is working him to death. And Drew also is taking a couple weeks off because Menlo College is working him to death. So we're going to we'll be winging it without them for a couple weeks. But anyway, so we're going to start off with a brief college hoops notebook. But before we do that, I just want to say hello to Cam. Cam, how you doing?
Rich, just taking in the little bit of basketball news that's out there, having a good time with the kids at school.
Yeah.
It's been a good start to the year.
So do your kids listen to the podcast at all?
Oh God, I hope not.
So it's
I'm sure. So they every year they start stalking you online, and like to them, stalking you online is like Googling your name.
Right.
And so they'll pop up like, pictures of me coaching in high school. They're like, "Look at you, mister. You look like a baby." I'm like, "Yeah, because I was 16." Like, you guys shocked? Like, yeah, I'm a human.
Well, the good news for you is I am like the worst boss ever, and I still don't have your profile on the podcast page. I need yours, Drew's, Doc's. I just haven't gotten around to it. I think the only one that on there is CJ, who was my first co-host, and Hugh Baxter, who's no longer with us because he's working in the NBA. All right,
yes,
so let's
indeed.
So let's move on to the college hoops notebook. Real brief here. Kansas men's basketball program took a hit this week. Another one actually, and guard Ontario Morris, who was coming over from Texas, 5-star guy. He's suspended from the program indefinitely following a rape accusation. This is his second off-court incident in the last 15 months. Last summer, Morris basically pleaded no contest, which means he didn't admit guilt and it turned out to be a misdemeanor for assault. So this is two strikes in about a year. Of course, this one is super serious. And I guess they're going to wait to let the legal situation play out, but they don't want to, some schools, say, well, we'll punish him after the legal stuff is gone. But I guess Kansas feels that this is serious enough and maybe, what's the word I want? Credible enough that they want to do something right now. So Cam, chime in if you want. I don't know if there's much to say about that one. Another quick note, Joe, and I always get Joe's name wrong. Joe Beamisil, played at GW, played at I believe Virginia Tech. I think he started off. Then he went to GW, then he went to Oklahoma, and now he's trying to go to his fourth school in 4 years, and he was trying to transfer into VCU, and the NCAA denied his waivers, and he must sit out this season. This is a big hit for VCU, who basically was cleaned out after their coach left, so they're relying on a lot of incoming guys. And in the Atlantic 10, as we talked about in our A10 preview, the last time Joe was in the A10, he averaged close to 17 points a game for George Washington. So this could be a big hit for VCU. And interesting enough, I think we're going to find out as we get closer and closer to the season, there's going to be more guys like this. And I don't think all of them are going to – I don't think they're going to want to sit out a year. I think we're going to be talking about – he is going into his fourth year, but other guys are going to be going in their fifth year and sixth year. And I think they're going to just say the heck with it, and they're going to go play in the G League or in Europe or something like that. They'll still be draft eligible. So if Joe, for example, wanted to do that and he went and played for Real Madrid, he'd still be draft eligible this year. But yeah. So the biggest news in college basketball this week was Xavier. Xavier it was announced that most likely Zach Fremantle, who's probably going to be their star this year, their star big man this year, and Jerome Hunter, who filled in for him last year and also was probably going to start last year, another a four for them. He was a former, I believe, a four-star Indiana and played really well last season. And Fremantle did when he was healthy, but both of them are most likely going to miss the season due to injury. Big hit for Xavier. However, another trend that we're seeing this summer, this fall, is European guys are being added as recruits, incoming freshmen, late in the game. And so that applies to Xavier, who have brought in two bigs from Europe. And the one I want to talk about is somebody who's probably going to be in the top 10 or top 200 of our draft board. He already was. He was last year and was going to be this year. And that's Sasa Siani. But they're also bringing in Lazar and Cam and my, I think that's
Djokovic.
Not with the D. Is Djokovic?
He's not a tennis. Yeah, Djokovic.
Djokovic. All right. So Lazar Djokovic. But we'll talk about both of them just a tad. So Siani was very, very productive. He's the Slovenian, and he was very productive last year in the. Bear with me. I got to look up in the Croatian league, which is a solid league, and he averaged 22 minutes per game. He averaged 11.1 points per game, shot 66% from the field. Now, he is not a shooter, didn't make a three in the Croatian league, and he wasn't a good foul shooter at 46%. But he also, now, keep in mind, 22 minutes a game, brought in 7 rebounds a game. So that's a nice stat for that many minutes. And also averaged 1 steal and close to 1 block per game. So he's 6'9", power forward. Obviously, in order to really move up our draft board, he's going to have to develop an outside shot, or at a minimum, at least, be shooting 65% from the free throw line, not 45%. So with the other guy, Lazar Djokovic, he is Serbian, and he really hasn't have a lot of pro level type experience, but he did pretty well, or did very nicely this year in the under-19 World Cup. He averaged 29 minutes per game, actually close to 30, 15 points per game, shot 55 from the floor, 38% from deep, only 459 from the foul line. You see that a lot with Europeans. They shoot well from the three-point line, but they don't shoot great from the free throw line. I can never figure that out. He also averaged 7 rebounds per game, 3.1 assists, 1 steal, and close to a half a block per game. Now, he played more minutes, and this is only a small sample of 7 under-19 World Cup games. So Siani, played at a much more consistent high level, for over 20-some games. But still very encouraging. In his measurements, I think they're close in size. No, actually, Djokovic is 6'10". 6'10", 220. I didn't realize he was that tall. And he has an outside shot. So ultimately, he might be the better of the two prospects because he's already displaying a outside shot. I believe both are 19 years old, too. So that's the good news for Xavier. And that basically wraps up our college notebook. Any thoughts, Cam?
Yeah, I just want to go back to Jerome Hunter for a second. We were talking about trends, but we're talking another college athlete struggling with a sort of cardiac arrest issue. Obviously Bronny James's incident made a lot of headlines, was big on social media, but Jerome Hunter's going through some sort of similar issue. Again, likely out for the year. I just think, we got to start looking at some of the connections and continuing factors that are, these are kids. These guys, athletes, granted, but pushing their bodies to the extreme, but it's not a good sign that we're seeing so many athletes come down with this sort of, I'm not even going to call it an injury, but like a serious health issue.
Right.
That's something that I really worry about, and I wonder, if we're going to see a continuation of this trend where guys are having, serious heart complications.
Well, for USC, what's strange about, the Bronny James thing
Yeah.
was it was the second year in a row USC had a guy collapse and have his heart stop.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I'm not blaming USC, and it's just a freak coincidence, but that kind of shows you how not so uncommon it is. I mean, we had it with Keontae Johnson. So
I mean, the list goes on.
Well, here's the weird thing too, though. COVID, if you get it, can affect your heart.
Yeah. And I think, having like worked in a school space, you kind of you're seeing now, I think, some of the after effects where like kids just don't have an immune system is built up. There are some real like lasting health effects going on. Yeah, I kind of wonder, you might be onto something there, Rich. I mean, it's got to be really difficult to find the research to back that up, but like, if you're putting two and two together, I could see where there can be a connection there.
Well, Keontae Johnson did get COVID, and he did have myocarditis. And COVID can cause, doesn't always, and probably in most people it doesn't, but in some it can cause myocarditis.
Yeah.
So yeah, and then that can be managed if it's not too bad, in Keontae Johnson's case. But we also saw him sit out for 2 years. So
yeah, it's a long time.
The other thing I want to say about Zach Freemantle, he doesn't have a heart issue. I believe again it's a foot, and I think. And they
were saying it's the third time he's injured the exact same foot.
It is going to be the third time he is going to miss significant portion of a season. So 2 years ago he missed the tail end of the season. Then last year he missed the beginning part of the beginning part of last year, played well, and then got hurt again and missed the end of the season. And now this season looks like he's already a washout. So as much as I like Zach, I love his game. He's a hustler. He's a scrapper. I just think, playing professionally is not looking good unless something really can turn around for him, because, he's getting up there now. I mean, this was going to be his 5th year already. And so now he's looking at a 6th year. I mean, I feel bad for the kid. And he's also a big that can shoot a little. So that, that was the thing I was looking forward to see. I know he can play defense. I know he can rebound. I want to see that shot be perfected, and maybe he's, becomes a viable pro prospect. But yeah. All right. So we'll move on. Before we move on to our NBA notebook, we're going to roll an interview that I did a few days ago with Erik Reynolds II, a combo guard from St. Joe's, plays in the Atlantic 10. This is kind of a follow-up to our Atlantic 10 preview, and Erik is definitely a candidate to be Player of the Year in that conference. Our special guest today is St. Joseph's junior guard, Erik Reynolds II, all A10 selection last season. Erik was one of the most efficient scorers in the nation, ranking at the 88th percentile for points per possession. He ranked second in the conference with 19.6 points per game, and he ranked in the top 10 of the conference for field goal percentage, 43%, 3-point percentage, 38%, free throw percentage, 89%. He also ranked in the top 6 of the A10 for player efficiency rating, win shares, and plus minus. Erik, thank you for joining us today. How you doing? I see, or I hear you're at a barber shop in Philadelphia.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I'm feeling pretty good. Just, I'm in a barbershop, a little busy time right now.
Are they wanting a plug to say what barbershop?
To be honest, it's Philly's finest barbershop. It's on Market Street. You know,
Okay.
I recommended a couple of my teammates to come here, so I love it here.
Okay.
Definitely makes me feel comfortable, like I'm getting a haircut back at home. So
Yeah,
I'm good.
yeah. There's nothing like a finding a good place where you're really comfortable. You like the people that hang out there, the people who do your hair. I actually am lucky to have one of those in my town. So
Right.
yeah. All right. So how was your summer? What have you been up to since last season?
Summer's been great. Just a lot of working out. So after the season ended, of course we had our spring workouts. But after that, we had 8 weeks of summer work starting May 22nd. So we've been there since May 22nd to July 21st. So it's been a lot of work. It's been a lot of good work. Um, real productive, I would say. And the team, I just getting more and more excited for season start. It's definitely started during the summertime though.
Right, right. So you've been mostly in Philadelphia then?
Yes. Only been back at home a little bit, really. I'm spending most of my time in Philly, moved to my new apartment. So it's been a lot of time in Philly for sure.
Right, right. So I heard that you attended the Formula Zero basketball camp, which is run by Dame Lillard. What was that experience like, and what did you learn?
Oh man, that Formula Zero camp is different. I was definitely blessed to have the opportunity to go there. All the coaches there, all the staff members, to the rebounders, to everybody there was just so involved. The energy in the gym was just different. So, and Dame was actually involved. It wasn't just one of those things where he just had his name connected to the camp. Like he was actually involved. He was in the gym with us. He was working out with us. He also had some of his teammates there working out with us. So it was a great experience. I learned a lot, work ethic wise, like on the court and off the court. How to approach different things. So I say coming back from that camp, my mindset has changed in a lot of different ways, from a life standpoint, from a basketball standpoint, to it showed me a lot of different ways how to approach things. So I'm really appreciative of that camp. I'm thankful I got the invite.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, it's invite only, huh?
Yeah. It was an invite only thing.
Nice, nice. And I noticed on their website they say that they take a little different approach, kind of a unique approach, which is basically the first words out of your mouth. Did any guys who were in school there?
From where? From my school?
Any school,
Yeah.
any school, anybody you've played against, from past.
So I know Deshaun Harris Smith that goes to Maryland.
Okay.
He's going to be a freshman this year at Maryland. He was there. Jameer Nelson's son, Jameer Nelson Jr.
Yeah.
He was there.
Delaware
now.
now. Yeah, right. He's going to TCU.
Yeah, he's going to TCU. So those are the only two I really knew. Caleb Battle that went to Temple. And he
going to Arkansas.
Arkansas. Yeah. So he was there too. So it was some familiar faces there. It was good to be around those guys too, with those guys. Instead of playing against Caleb, instead of playing against him. It was cool to be around those guys. So it was a good experience. So but Deshaun, we're from the same area, and we played with teams. We both played with Team Takeover. So
okay.
It was good. It was good to see him there too.
All righty. So two years ago, you were named A10 All Rookie Team. Then last season, you brought it up a notch. You were All Conference selection, and I'm just going to mention a couple of marks you hit in school history. Well, your 648 points were the fifth most in school history for a season, and your 99 three-pointers were the third most at St. Joe's in the history of St. Joe's for a season. And last week on our show, Jake Copestick, who's kind of my partner for college, he does actually the Big Five podcast, so he's a big fan of yours. And he predicted that you would win the A10 Player of the Year. Do you have similar expectations for yourself? And do things like that you're going to hear now coming up in the preseason, you're going to hear he's an all-conference player, does that add unwanted pressure?
I wouldn't say unwanted, it's good to hear those things, but I would never pinpoint a focus for me to like, oh, I have to get this, I have to get that. But of course, I would love to get it. That would be a good achievement for sure, and I would be thankful for that. But I just like my mindset going into it is like, I'm gonna let the season speak to me. I'm gonna let each game speak to me. So I'm gonna take a game, each game at a time. You know what I'm saying? So I'm not gonna put anything out there right now and say like, yes, I'm gonna go get like yes, I want to go get that, yes, but I'm not gonna claim it. You know what I mean?
Yep.
So,
yeah, everybody has a different.
It's definitely good to hear.
Everybody has a different approach. Some people, it really matters, and some people just, I'm just saying. I'm not going to go into it. I was going to mention a name, somebody who was really pissed off on the show because he didn't win Player of the Year.
Oh yeah, nah, I ain't gonna be mad.
Yeah. So I got to ask you, and I'm going to watch my fingers because I'm going to say, as a 3-star guy, do you think you play with a chip on your shoulder, and do you have to smile at times, knowing that those high school talent evaluators were wrong?
Oh yeah, 100%. I definitely smile at those things, but the whole ranking thing and the whole star thing never really been a focus for me. So, but I love proving people wrong. That's one thing I like to do. So I'm a heavy believer on letting the game speak for itself. So that's another reason why I came to St. Joe's because of coach's belief in me.
Okay.
Like his personal belief in me is what drove me here. So it definitely added a huge chip on my shoulder for sure. Each game I had a different mindset, especially like depending on who the opponent was. Okay, like I have to, but I don't have to, but like I want to show that I belong in this type of environment instead of like shying away from the environment. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So I like to show that I can be included in these type of things and stuff like that. So definitely a chip on the shoulder for sure.
Okay.
No doubt about that. It's definitely a different mindset, especially like getting older now. It's definitely a different approach to each game.
Right. All right. I'm going to pass you over to Pete for a few questions.
Okay.
Thank you, Erik, for joining us today. I just want to zoom out a little bit back on this sort of chip on your shoulder kind of stuff. Throughout your life, who have been some of the biggest influences on your life to get you to where you are at this point of your career and really at this point in your life?
I'd say like my coaches and the people I grew up playing with. So definitely my high school coach, Coach Kelly, my AU coach, Coach Pete Stevens. When I was younger, it was my Coach Doug Dorman. So with him, that's like those key anchors in my life really like got me to push like further and further and further. And they also helped me expand my game and get better. And as far as my teammates go, I played with some of the top guys in the nation. So like when I was younger, I played with Zion Harmon. And I also played with Doug McDaniel so I grew up with really Doug. So I've been playing with him. I've been learning a lot from him because he's like a great point guard. Him being at Michigan shows that. So being around him, I learned a lot of things from him. As I got older playing, even now, like I learned a lot from Lynn. I learned a lot from Christian. I learned a lot from Xavier. So just being around good guards has helped me expand my game more and more. But definitely a huge impact from my coaches, like, and my trainer, Darren McClinton. Like I've been putting in countless hours with these guys. They've been pouring into me their information with their experiences. So definitely those guys, they have a huge impact on my life.
How much do you keep up with those other guards? You guys have a group chat or anything? How tough is that to keep up during the season?
It's definitely hard, but we talk whenever we can. It's not like a thing that it's not like a thing where we have to we have like a scheduled thing or whatever. But it's like whenever we reach out to one another, we'll know we'll get a response. You know, it's one of those things. But yeah, I stay pretty connected. You know, when I'm home, if we're both home, we'll link up or we'll go. You know, saying we'll do whatever. So I stay in pretty good contact with all my teammates, some of my former teammates.
Back to where you guys are from the team perspective, you guys look to be in a great shape to contend for that conference title. Only real significant player you lost was your center, Obina, and a very talented freshman class is going to join you guys this year. You're about 9 deep. You have Xavier Brown coming in as a freshman, another guard. He should see a fair amount of action. How excited are you about this year's group, and what do you see about the changes from last year to this year?
Really, really excited, first of all. Definitely excited about the potential of this team. We're young, hungry, and like the energy is just different with this team. We also added, as you said, we lost Edge, which is a huge piece. We also added Priest Esendogo. So he's like a big part of this team as well. That I feel like that we would is going to shock a lot of people. So I'm excited about that. Definitely faster. A lot more people can run now, I would say. And it's just I feel like we have a threat from a lot of different angles this year. With just because of the team we have a deeper bench as well. So it's a lot of things to look forward to, I would say. That's all I got.
If you want to go faster, want to be able to push on the brake more, is that how you guys are going to try to pivot away from losing Obina's, that interior scoring, that rebounding, or are you going to try to make it up in different ways?
We can make it up in different ways because we have a lot of like big wings that could also like crash the boards and make an impact on the paint as well. So we have pieces that can make up for that. Even though Edge, like you said, Edge is a huge loss for us for sure. But we also added because Rashir, Sean, Casper, Dacier, like we have in Cam. So we have guys that like really could crash the boards and make an impact on that stuff.
It does seem like the conference is going to be wide open this season. You have you guys, you have St. Bonaventure, Dayton, VCU, Duquesne, all appearing to really be in this race this year. So what specifically about you guys really stands out about that you can make that extra push? And is there one single teammate that you're really, really excited for, you hope gets that national attention?
If you want me to single out a specific person, it'll be Kreese. He'll be our big man. I have a lot of confidence in him. Me personally, I have a huge amount of confidence in him and what he can do for us. But at the end of the day, it's definitely a huge team effort for us. One of our sayings is a Hawk attack, and everybody in the gym attacks each other. There's no backing down from anybody. Everybody goes at each other with high intensity. So I feel like once we play against somebody else, this is going to be the same thing with 10 times more effort, because we all like attack. We all take pride in what we do, and we're gonna make sure that like you feel our presence on the court. Like we're not gonna back down. So that's singling out a person that I'm really excited for is Kreese, but I'm excited for this team. Like I'm really excited for this team. We have a lot of different pieces that could just wow a lot of people, I would say.
All right, I'm going to toss it back to Rich.
You last week we did our A10 preview, and Jake like I said, does the Big Five podcast, and I don't know who he heard it from, but he said on the show that you guys were super high on Kreist, and that no disrespect to Obina, but you guys thought you were going to be in really good hands with Kreist. And for those who don't know, he's like 7 foot 7'1", and he's huge.
Yeah, legit.
And he's from France. He's from France, and he redshirted last year, so he's still a freshman.
Exactly.
But yeah, has there been talk, amongst the teams and the team and coaches that I don't remember the A10 being this wide open, and I don't remember St. Joe's coming into a season being this deep. You guys, I mean, you said you were excited, but I mean, has there been talk about how this conference is there for the taking?
I mean, you mean talk like within the locker room, or like talk within like the media? Which type of talk?
Well, you pick it. You pick it. You let me know. Or even in your mind, because a lot of players say to us, I don't really know who's coming and going on the other teams. I'm just worried about my team. So I was just curious what you guys are thinking.
I mean, I'll touch on both. Like, of course, in the locker room, we're gonna have all the confidence in the world in ourselves. Like Coach tells us all the time to always respect our opponent. And we just gonna go out and give them our best shot. I hope they gonna bring their best shot. It's really one of those things. But we, never gonna look down on anybody. I say that. But I've seen a lot of stuff in the media for sure about like the A10 being open this year, like you said, but no one ever really has extreme high expectations for St. Joe's, at least in the past couple of years. So that's why I'm like high on really shocking a lot of people, but also like keeping a lot of stuff in because I just want people to wait and see.
Right. Right.
I really want people to wait and see. So I don't think there's definitely talks about us like, yeah, we can be good, we can be this, we can be that, but I just want people to see it for themselves because people don't see what we do in the gym. People don't see how competitive we are. People don't know what we do day to day. So that's like my main spiel with that. But as far as the media goes.
Okay. Let's talk about your game just a little bit. Last season, you excelled as a shooter. All kinds of shots off the dribble, catch and shoot, mid range, deep. And in terms of play type, you were elite on spot up plays, coming off screens, in transition. In terms of the pick and roll, the analytics say you're good, but there's room for improvement as both a scorer and a playmaker. Having said that, is there any particular aspect of your game that you've been working on this offseason? And in terms of your game or your role, are we going to see a different Erik Reynolds or just an all-around better Erik Reynolds? Or is there something in particular that maybe the coaches have said, Erik, you're going to be doing more of this, or Erik, you're going to be doing more of this?
I'd say it's going to be all around thing, as you said. I've been working on a lot of decision making. I've also still been working on a lot of shooting as well, just more without the dribble and, some with. So, but primarily it's been definitely decision making. Like we've been working on decision making as a team. So definitely improvement with that. Each year has been, because, freshman year has been more on ball for me, like bringing the ball to the court and all that.
Right.
And then last year when we had Lynn, which was a great addition for us, he helped me so I didn't have to be on the ball as much. And then now adding, last year too with Christian as well. So like, don't have to be on ball as much. And then now that we have Lynn, Xavier, Christian, and and me. So like it'll be I lost for a second, but it'll be a lot more off ball stuff for me, I would say. A little bit changed this year. Running the floor, coming off a lot like different couple of screens, stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, definitely definitely, like you said, a lot of room for improvement. So I've been looking for those.
Well, no, I didn't
those.
say that. I said the pick and roll, the analytics. The analytics say that
Well, yeah,
you were
that
in like
falls in the
you were like in the 60th percentile around there. If for pick and roll, all the other things I mentioned, you were like 80 and above.
Oh, okay. So pick and roll definitely been okay. My bad. So specifically to the pick and roll has been a lot of decision making with that too.
Right.
There's been a lot of decision making. So I've been improving with that.
Okay.
Definitely.
All right. As we talked about, you're a Maryland native, so I have to ask. I've always lived around Philly most of my life. So how have you taken to the tradition and history of Philly basketball, such as the Big Five? And what do you think of the new Big Five format that includes Drexel and 2 divisions now?
Yeah, it's different. It's definitely different. But as far as like adapting to like Philly sports, like I love this like Philly sports world. Like it feel like it's just a different everything when it comes to Philly sports. So and then being a part of the Big Five, historic wise, I'm just glad to be a part of that because I know how much pride people take in it and how much like feelings and how much stuff came with the Big Five. So being a part of that I take pride in that now too. So I'm happy to represent St. Joe's with that. And as far as the new setup, I mean, coach was giving me a little history rundown with that. It seemed like it was a long time coming with Drexel being added to that.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, it's cool. I mean, it's going to be a little different schedule wise because I'm used to playing everyone like at specific times.
Right.
But now we're not playing Temple and well, we play LaSalle anyway, but we're not playing
you're not playing
them
Temple
in like a Big Five sense.
Right. Well, the only way you could play Temple when they meet where the Sixers
right.
where the Sixers play for them. I think that's December 2nd. I might be there actually. I think that's going to be a fun day. The triple header. Yeah, for us older guys, your father's age or your grandfather's age, the Big Five used to be a big deal, and I'm hoping it comes back that way. Philly has a long tradition of excellent basketball, but we've been losing a lot of our guys. But I noticed, like in our recruiting class, you got 2 guys from, I believe, Roman Catholic, right?
Yep, X and Anthony Finkley.
Right, yeah. Right. So hopefully we can hold on to those Philly guys.
Sure.
So speaking of tradition, I got to ask you something, and this is a funny question. The Hawks mascot is on scholarship, but to keep that position, the person can't stop flapping their wings during the game, which is crazy to me. Do you know this person, and do they have insane shoulders like Arnold Schwarzenegger?
Yeah, I know this person. This person right here works extremely hard. Like that is a hard thing to do, to be in that suit and flat for that long, that many times. Like it's a different type of mental battle, I would say, rather than physical.
Yeah.
So, but you definitely you can't knock the physical parts at all, but definitely a huge mental battle with that.
Yeah.
He says he had huge shoulders. Nah, he doesn't have huge shoulders.
No.
But nah.
Damn, I thought he'd have like swimmer shoulders. You ever see swimmers? You know how they have the big. I thought he'd have.
He's just extremely in shape.
Right.
And he has a determination, and he takes pride in the school too. So
yeah,
that comes with a lot of different stuff. So he loves it.
All right, very cool. What's his name? Do you know of him?
I do. I don't know if I can share that though.
Why?
Because nobody's supposed to know the mascot.
Oh, I didn't know that. All right. Well,
actually, let me. Matter of fact, hold on. Let me see something real quick. I'll get back to you with that.
All right.
I'll get back to you with that. I just don't know.
All right. Well, that's fine. I just assumed it wasn't a big deal, but that's okay. It
I
adds.
mean, look, I would love to shout him out because
Okay.
that's my guy. But I just don't know if that. I don't know how it works.
Yeah, I get it. All right, so I'm gonna one last question for you. What are some of your interests outside of basketball?
When I have free time, I love to play the game. I love
2K?
Call of Duty. I'm starting to play 2K again. I'm about to start playing it again. But I took a little break from 2K, not gonna lie. But I'm heavy on Call of Duty. I like the open world games too, like Spider-Man, Batman, stuff like that. I like certain zombie games. But also really me and my teammates, we just have a special bond. So I like really just chilling with my teammates.
Right.
Doing anything. We'll all go get food sometimes. And I'll yeah, I mean, that's really, I'm trying to get into some cooking a little bit. I'm trying to.
Be
So
careful.
I'm probably gonna start that.
Every time I cook, I end up with a burn. I always burn myself.
You got to go through that trial and error stage, you know.
I think I do it on purpose, so my wife continues to cook.
I don't blame you.
I know you said it's been a break since you've been playing 2K, but when you play 2K, if you play like my career, play the park, do you try to make your build like yourself? Are you trying to make like a shot creating guard, or do you go completely the other way? You create the just high power forward or just a big man? What's the path you go down?
Good question. I mean, when I used to play, definitely would do it like me, but I wouldn't be my height though. I'd be like 6'6". I'd be like 6'6", 6'7", playmaking guard, something like that. I could shoot a little bit pass, dunk on a couple people. So that'd be my generic build I used to do. But now I don't even know what I'm about to make. It has changed so much, so I don't really know. But traditionally though, I definitely only thing that was different was my height. But also my hand, like I made my player left-handed. I don't know why, but I made my player left-handed too.
It's another thing they got to adjust to, that left hand.
Yeah. So that was my main 2K character build back then.
Yeah, well, thank you for sitting down with us, Eric. Rich, you got anything?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, embrace your inner Allen Iverson. All right, Eric. Well, I want to thank you for being on the show, and this was unique from a Philly barbershop. How cool is that? And so I want to thank you for joining us, and I hope we can do it again, perhaps after the season.
For sure.
And I want to wish you and the team the best this season. I really think it's going to be an exciting one. St. Joe's is going to be a fun team to watch. And I think not only do you have a chance to win the conference, I also think you have a chance to make it to the NCAA tournament. And wouldn't that be special?
Sure, that's definitely a dream of mine. So hopefully that comes true. I have the belief in this team that we can do it. So that's definitely doable.
Eric, thanks again for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Open up our NBA notebook. And first thing I want to talk about is just wrapping up the FIBA World Cup. Our last show, we were down to the Final Four. Cam correctly picked.
I took Germany over the U.S.
And I took Serbia over.
Yep, but
over
I took Canada to beat. But I picked Canada to beat Germany in the final.
And I picked the U.S. to beat Serbia. So
yeah, so we ended up in a wash on our picks.
Well, on those picks, on the contest.
Okay, Rich. Well, if we didn't have the USA hogging up one side of the bracket, maybe I would have come out on top. But we'll see. We'll let you wallow in your victory this time.
It's become a habit for me for wallowing in victory on this show because no one can beat me at anything.
I think he's fudging the numbers a little bit. Somebody check this data.
So, what I want to ask you, I thought Germany and Serbia was a good matchup. Obviously, we didn't see Serbia at 100%. But and Germany, I think, was clearly, I mean, they're the only team to go undefeated. They beat all comers. I think the only, a really good team that they didn't face was Canada, right?
And even they played a friendly game against each other,
right.
which Germany won.
Wow. Okay. Now in the friendly against USA, Germany had the lead for a long time, and the USA made a huge late comeback to actually edge that game out, which we talked about in our FIBA World Cup preview. But anyway, what I want to ask you about, I put down here 5 ideas, and my question is, what's wrong with Team USA? Now, I'm not saying that all 5 of these apply. These were the 5 things that came to mind. So I want to hear your thoughts. And keep in mind also, next week, we're going to have a guest, a Serbian native, a basketball coach who coaches in Germany. So I thought, what better guest to have is somebody who is, right there coaching in Germany. Serbian native, obviously, was rooting for Serbia. And we're going to have him on the show to kind of talk about, what's going on in the World Cup, with Team USA or even Canada. I mean, I think Canada was clearly on paper the second best team. We thought so as a group. So why can't these NBA stuffed teams, and Australia too was pretty NBA stuffed, and they didn't even get to the Final Four. So what do you think's going on?
Well, I mean, with Team USA in particular, I think the thing that really made me distrust that team in terms of taking gold at this year's World Cup was really the size.
Yeah.
I think when you kind of project out towards what this team's going to look like come Olympic play, there's a real lack of American talent in the front court.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if you project out to the Olympics, we're talking about Anthony Davis, maybe Bam Adebayo,
right?
But when you really go down the list, there's not a plus size, true traditional NBA type center with American roots right now. I can't think of a single guy really.
And a lot of them. Go ahead.
Yeah, but you go back to this World Cup team, and Jaren Jackson Jr. is basically running center, and if he gets into foul trouble, it's Walker Kessler, or maybe some Paolo Banchero minutes at center. A little touch of Bobby Portis here and there. None of those guys, literally none of those guys, even with Kessler and centers. You can go down the list. You got Valanciunas, who absolutely just destroyed Team USA when they played Lithuania. I mean, you got Nikola Vucevic. You've got some serviceable bigs up in Canada with a guy like Kelly Olynyk. Not to put him on the same pedestal as some of those guys.
Well, he played pretty damn well.
He played really well, yeah. And they have a guy like Zach Edey coming off the bench. They've got size. Germany's got a pair of guys with Tice, but even with the Wagner brothers, they're 6'10" plus, really, in their athletic profile. I just think international play without the defensive 3 seconds, with the ability to play, essentially zone with those centers, those guys are more valuable too, right? And an NBA style play, a guy like Nikola Vucevic is a detriment to your defense. In international play, he's a positive because he's just going to sit there in front of the rim and protect. That to me is the biggest issue with this NBA team, or with this previous Team USA. I think the other thing that maybe kind of flew a little under the radar, but But I thought Brandon Ingram had a really, really brutally tough to watch tournament. I don't know if he was hurt
Cam Johnson wasn't far
towards the
behind.
end. Yeah, Cam Johnson didn't look great either. I think Cam Johnson might have had a little bit of a tough expectation as far as like he was playing a lot of power forward, which I don't think is probably his best position.
Right.
So
that's
but I
what he
think
plays
Brandon
in the
Ingram.
NBA.
Well, he's a wing. I would say he's a wing.
Right.
He rebounds well, but he's not a pick and roll guy.
Right.
He's not a roll man. But yeah, I just thought Brandon Ingram looked lost in the Team USA offense. He didn't get a lot of touches. When he did, he wasn't overly, efficient scoring. And I think if you asked me going into, the tournament, I would have expected Brandon Ingram to kind of be, one of those kind of breakout candidates.
Mm-hmm.
And he didn't even finish. He didn't play against Germany.
Well, he had a respiratory infection.
Yeah,
but we didn't against Canada. We didn't see Jaren Jackson. We didn't see Boncaro. So I don't know what happened there, but yeah. To answer your question, some of the options we could throw out at center, beside Bam, and I'm going to throw out some names here. A lot of the big centers in the NBA would play for other teams, but we could throw out Chet Holmgren. Let's see here. Another option would be, you mentioned Anthony Davis, Miles Turner would be an option. Jalen Duren, he's up and coming. Mark Williams, now he certainly hasn't proven himself yet at the pro level, but I'm looking for him to maybe have a breakout season for Charlotte this year. But yeah, that's the list.
That's the list. That's it.
And when you look at the NBA and you look at a lot of the people who play center now, they really would not play center if they were on a European team. They're just so perimeter oriented. And, even you could say that about Chet, at least to some degree. But if you had Chet in there in with no defensive 3 seconds, woo, that would be pretty.
It would be nice. But again, we're talking about a guy who hasn't played a single NBA minute, too. Right. Which just kind of shows the state.
Those are our best options.
Yeah.
And when you look at Bam Adebayo, you're looking at like a 6'8", 6'9" guy who's going to have to go against Valanciunas under European rules.
Yes. I think that's the difference maker. It's like, in theory, it's like, yeah, in the NBA style, Bam Adebayo is easily a top 10 center. You could probably make an argument that he's top 5, depending how you feel about that sort of scheme. But when you throw him an international ball where they're going to feed the post, A, and B, like there's not really, like Bam's great at taking advantage of larger bigs in that he can abuse them with speed, athleticism, and he's taking advantage of bad rotations, really. Those aren't there in FIBA play. It's so clogged up. And I think that kind of affected some of our wings as well, where like in the NBA ball with that longer 3-point line, guys have to cover a ton of space. The game's really catered against defensive players. In international play, like it's so easy to recover back to the ball compared to the NBA ball. Some minor hand checking is also allowed. That makes a huge difference. To wing scorers like, an Anthony Edwards. He's not going up and putting 40 points like he does in the NBA.
Right. Another center I forgot was Jared Allen. Allen.
And so actually, you brought up Miles Turner. He's previously played with Team USA, so I imagine he will probably be on the short list to come back and play. But again, like he chose not to play FIBA ball. So I don't know if that kind of puts him lower in the queue of guys to play in the Olympics. I imagine it probably does. I would imagine we see Jaren Jackson again. But if he's playing more as his traditional 4,
Yeah, I don't know if we
It
see
might be
Jaren
a better
Jackson
fit.
again. I was not impressed with Jaren Jackson, but
When he's on the court and he's not fouling, he's a positive. When he's on the court and he's fouling to get himself off the court, he's a net negative. I think I'm a fan of Jaren Jackson. I think I was hoping that this would be kind of his coming out party and he could show a little bit more offensively. But it wasn't a great tournament for him.
right.
At the same time, these guys are gearing up for the NBA season. It's what they care about. It's what they get paid for. So,
Well,
it's tough to expect to see their best
that's an easy
basketball.
fallback excuse.
I agree. I agree, but I think it's the reality of like what their values are. I think that's part of why we didn't see Jaren. We didn't see
if that's
Brandon
the
Ingram.
case, then don't play for the team, because you know what? There are so many players available to the United States, like that we don't need you on the team, and that's one of the things I want to ask you. But the first thing I want to ask you is the rules. If they adopted FIBA rules, except for I don't know about the minutes per game. That would probably screw up all kinds of records. I don't know if you want to touch the 48 minutes, and I think we need to keep the 3-point line the way it is. But I like having zone, and I like having no defensive 3 seconds. I really do enjoy watching FIBA basketball more at this level, where you have the best in the world playing, much more than I enjoy watching the NBA. And I was just curious how you felt about that.
I agree. I've always liked defense. My favorite teams have always been defensive oriented teams. I think if you brought a more FIBA style of play,
well, that's what I'm talking about. Movement, the ball movement, assisted baskets, far less ISO.
Well, to me, it's the defense that adds to the game, right? That's what more traditional like NBA fans miss about the game now, is that those teams don't exist anymore. Right? You don't have your traditional Pistons teams. You don't have your traditional. Even Showtime Lakers, the old Celtics, they're all defensive oriented teams, right? We see like the highlights, what they could do offensively, but at their core, those teams were great because of their defensive schemes, and they were brutal, physical basketball teams. That's what made them great. We don't have that anymore. That's not a thing. That's part of why the Heat are so good.
We've taken defense out of the game to so much of extent, but to me, that waters it down so much.
I don't want to watch. I remember even when I was growing up, it was a big deal when a guy would score 30.
Yes.
Just because of the pacing. It was huge. It was a huge deal. It was like, oh my God, he put up 30.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And I
think it's washing out the records the way we're playing now.
One or two guys were close to 30 per game for the season. So you'd have like George Gervin, David Thompson, and then, they would be around that 30-point mark. And then, and then you'd have a few others that were averaging over 20 for the season. But now it's like everybody and their brother scoring over 20 a game now means nothing.
Seriously. No, it means nothing. I mean, the list only gets longer of guys that average 20. And I think it hurts the long-term, view of the game, right? These records are all going to start falling because guys are just putting up so many points.
Right.
There's just so many assists to be had. Do I think James Harden is a better passer than a guy like Steve Nash? No. Do I think he's better than Rondo? No. But statistically, there's more assists to be had in the game now. So James Harden's getting 10 plus assists a game.
Right.
I think it's a shame too. We've kind of, you could look at the results of international play. We are almost legislating out the big man and the post game.
Yeah.
And I think that's a disservice to the game of basketball because that's a skill that is inherently valuable to putting points on the board.
Right.
I miss it. I love
Yeah,
watching that
I
kind
do.
of play.
I do too. I do too. And the European game just has so many more assisted baskets, so much more creative passing. It's just a joy.
There's more diverse play styles.
Yeah. Oh
right?
yeah.
Because
Yeah.
I mean, if you're a great defender, you're going to be out there, but you can also be a cutter. You can be a slasher.
Right.
I think that's
can be a
leaving the
post
game now
scorer.
too.
You could be a post scorer.
Yeah.
And that's one of the reasons why it was like, how can you like college basketball better than the NBA? I'm like, because it's a better game. It's the way basketball was meant to be played. What the NBA does now is some kind of hybrid of basketball. It's not real basketball. And where I think it's showing up that I'm right is when we have to play real basketball against these top European teams, we can't beat them anymore.
No, we're not good at that style of play.
Right.
So the style of play is AAU basketball. That's what it is. I mean, even the player movement to the type of offense to the shots that are valued, it's AAU basketball. You can tell me it's analytics all you want, but I can show you analytics that show that a 60% rim scorer is better than just about anything that you can have on the court. But we don't have those type of players anymore in the United States.
Right.
We've taken them out of the game.
And here's another thing I said to somebody else when I was talking about this off the show. And someone said, what do you think needs to be done? I said, well, the first thing I think we need to do is get college coaches coaching our team. And Steve Kerr said something that really disturbed me because someone asked him, he said, Mike Krzyzewski, someone pointed out that the German team had all made a 3-year commitment to play ball. So anytime there was an international competition, they were there. And Coach K used to make his players, if you want to play for Team USA, I need a 3-year commitment. So there was continuity. And Steve Kerr's answer was, oh, we can't do that anymore. There's too many good players in the United States who need a chance to, they need a chance to be on Team USA. I'm like, no, this is not something that you're entitled to. This is something you earn. This is something you work for. Where did just being a good player, oh yeah, well, it's your turn. No, that's not how it works. And I was like, what are you talking about? I mean, that's where really, to me, it has to start at the top. I want to see Bill Self coaching the team, not Steve Kerr.
I think there was always something kind of charming about, the Coach K teams, and you can go back further than that, but it's almost a college atmosphere for these guys coming back and playing international ball.
Yeah, because they're doing it for the love of the game.
Yeah, they're not getting paid bank to go and play. They can make a lot in sponsorship deals and so on, and it can raise their profile internationally. I think that's what a lot of guys think about when they go. Yeah, if they win.
If they would win anything.
If they win. But that's really what a lot of guys are thinking about. But I think if you listen to any stories about the Dream Team or the Redeem Team, right, or, the most recent, like Kevin Durant would have never ended up a Warrior if he hadn't been on that Olympic team. Would have never happened. And, there's something really cool about putting the best American talent on one court at the same time. At the same time, why can't we do that every year? Why can't we do that for every event? It just kind of shows our value system. But I would say at the same time, if you're an international player, your season's shorter. You have less games. There's less travel.
Less minutes in a game.
Yep, shorter games. And so it's a whole lot less of an ask to bring those international guys in to play a tournament in the summer.
Yeah,
we got 82 games to prepare for. This is when guys get surgery to play the 82 games to get to the finals.
But this goes back to what Kerr said, and one of the things I would suggest is having more role players, having more players who are already used to playing without the ball. So if Brandon Ingram isn't going to be one of your top 3 or 4 scorers, then he's probably not a good player to have on your team. You need guys that are going to set screens. You need guys who are going to play defense. You're going to need guys who are happy just sitting out at the 3-point line and knocking down a 3. You also need guys who are willing to move off the ball. You know, something that we don't do very well as a team. Team USA, that is.
I totally agree.
All right, we'll move on. All right, so the next item in the notebook is Kevin Porter's recent off-court thing, and this is domestic violence. And I don't know if you want to go into the details, but right now, as it stands, he faces a second-degree strangulation charge, and I think a second-degree assault charge, which his attorneys are asking him to drop because these words are hard to say, because he didn't break his girlfriend's neck, because apparently it was already broken because of a congenital defect. Not sure how you live that long with that and you don't know it. But yeah, Kevin Porter,
lawyers gonna lawyer, Rich. I mean, the rep on Kevin Porter Jr. has always been that he's a head ass and doesn't care about a whole lot except himself. And this just kind of underlines that.
Yep.
I mean, granted, I'm always down for guys to get a second chance, especially once they figure out their legal issues. You know, if they can come back a better person. I'm excited to see Miles Bridges come back from his incident. And from his remarks, it seems like, you know, Miles Bridges has done a lot of change making in his life. If Kevin Porter Jr. can go down that journey and come back a better person, awesome. Until then, I don't want to see him in an NBA uniform. I don't want to see him getting a check from any NBA team. And I think that's the way the league's handling it. You know, depending on the severity of what he's done, he should go to jail.
Yeah.
That's for a court to decide, though.
Yeah. And this isn't Porter's first. I mean, he's had trouble going all the way back to his time at USC, and maybe even before that we're not aware of. One thing I'll say about Porter is, you know, from the minute I saw him play at USC, I didn't like him. I don't know, of all my time scouting,
I've never liked him either. It's just his play style.
Right. So well, that's what I was about to say. You know, I've never, ever watched a player as much do one thing as much as him, and that was go for the spectacular play, be damned the score, be damned his team. And, you know, he would do things like he would hang back instead of like boxing out or anything. He would kind of hang back and look for a lane so he could get a spectacular putback. Things like that, where he should be just boxing out or getting ready to, you know, go down the other end of the court. No, he was looking for the spectacular play. The other thing was, anytime somebody touched him, he would go down better than any, you know, FIFA soccer player. And he'd miss the rest of the game. It was almost like if I just have like a little bruise, I'm not going to play because I'm too good for this. I'm headed to the NBA. So selfish, and it was so obvious by watching him, and that's why he fell in the draft. By the way, for people who want to call me a second guesser, you can go read my scouting report on Kevin Porter. It's somewhere on the site. I definitely ripped him a new one when he was coming out. Moving on, Sixers, and I wish Doc was here because this is something he had been talking about. Why haven't the Sixers signed Kelly Oubre? Well, they've signed Kelly Oubre, and I'm actually excited about this, and I'll tell you why. I'm excited because I think it might get PJ Tucker less minutes, and the less PJ Tucker plays, the better off I think the Sixers are. And I think they can play Oubre at the 3 and Tobias Harris at the 4 and actually have a pretty good shooting lineup. Nobody on that team is a knockdown shooter, but Harris isn't bad. Oubre isn't bad. Maxey is getting better. I really wish they did still have like a JJ Redick type player that they could at least bring off the bench. But I actually like this move.
I like Oubre. He like Austin Rivers. I'm just confused why they're still left in free agency for this long. I don't know if they were holding out for a particular destination, because there are a few teams that still have roster spots. They're waiting. I mean, the Heat are a good example. I think they still got like 3 roster spots.
Yeah, I think Portland has a lot of room too, because they don't want to sign a bunch of people because they expect to get an influx of.
Yeah, and again, Charlotte's in the same boat. That's where he's coming from. So, I think it's a great signing. That there's 2 things that this Sixers sort of era has always lacked: wing scorers and guys with elite wing size that can shoot and play a bit of defense. Just a little bit.
And you can actually
Oubre can play a little bit,
and he can actually also play the 4. In the NBA.
Especially if Embiid's playing center. You don't need a whole lot of size at that point. They need shooting. They've never had a shooter. Old JJ Redick was about the
Redick
best shooter.
Since Redick
he was well past his prime by the time he got out there.
Yeah.
And he had a great season for them.
Yeah, he was there for actually a couple years.
Time.
He was there for 2 years, I believe.
Yeah, I thought he might have gotten traded mid-season or something.
Yeah,
like
he
that.
may have. Yeah,
I think he was in that Tobias deal, or there's something along that line.
Yeah, you might be right. Speaking of shooters, the next guy we're going to talk about is a 40% plus shooter for his career. That's Buddy Hield, and apparently today it was reported that Buddy Hield is on the trading block. Now, they've been talking about trading Buddy Hield since the minute he walked in the door, but apparently it's really serious now because they can't come to terms on an extension. Personally, I think the Pacers, I know you don't want to overpay for the guy. There's so many guys in the NBA that are already being overpaid, but at the same time, you look at their roster and they really don't have a knockdown shooter except him. There's some decent shooters on that team, and there's some young guys that theoretically are supposed to be knockdown shooters, but it hasn't happened yet. So I don't know. I really think this team has a chance to make some noise, but they need a shooter that they can count on for threes. And without Buddy Hield, they might not have that.
I don't know. I think Mathurin is ready to take on a bigger role, and if I'm looking back at like the history of the Pacers, they've always been kind of playing the middle of the road game with multiple timelines. I think it would be really refreshing to see them just go full young, and really just continue to build around this young core of wings that they have. And you know what? At the end of the day, though, Halliburton in particular. At the end of the day, though, Buddy Hield is a top 5 shooter in the NBA right now, and you can't let a guy like that walk. And no matter what, a guy like that has trade value.
Oh yeah.
And you add him to just about any team in the league right now, they're going to be really, really happy with what they get.
The Pacers want James Harden. We'll take Buddy Hield off their hands.
Yeah, you would love that, Rich. Kelly Oubre might not like that, though. I think a lot of his shots would disappear. Buddy Hield would take them all. But man, I've always been a big Buddy Hield guy. A lot of people laughed at Vivek Randival when he compared him to Curry and said he was the next Curry. But if you look at his shooting numbers, he's pretty damn close. He's a great NBA shooter. Obviously he's not Steph, but
right.
He can pretend for a little while.
Right.
Yeah, I hope he finds a good destination. I'd like to see some Buddy Hield playoff basketball.
Or maybe they can work things out with the Pacers, because I think this team is on the verge of contending. So we shall see. By the way, there's been no real movement on the Harden or Dame Lillard trade stuff. One thing I did hear though, you and I were discussing last episode, who's at fault here, and apparently it's Portland. Portland's holding everything up. They just don't like what Miami's offering, and Miami doesn't have much more they're going to offer, and so that's where it's at. So, all right, good luck to those teams. So the Celtics and Warriors, I don't know, about a month ago or so, we talked about some teams that had some really glaring holes, and we brought up the Celtics and Warriors in terms of, they definitely need to add a big man along the line, and both teams kind of did that this past week. Boston signed Nemi Kita on a two-way deal, and Golden State signed Usman Garuba, fresh out of World Cup for Spain, to a two-way deal. So two-way deal could be upgraded. Both of them have room on their regular rosters. I think Garuba is much more likely to see significant playing time because A, I think he's a better player, and B, if Kuminga keeps on disappointing that team, Garuba could come in as he not only could back up Looney, but he also could back up Draymond Green at the 4 and be, he's a quality NBA defender that just doesn't have the offensive, talent. But on Golden State, you don't need to score. You just, or if you do, you play pick and roll with Chris Paul now, and Garuba can do that. So he's very good at that. So I think this is a really good move by Golden State, and I wouldn't be surprised if Garuba gets upgraded to a regular contract. Oh, by the way, Golden State is also continuing to talk to other teams, and one of the players they're talking to is Dwight Howard. I hope that doesn't happen.
Oh, I would love it. I you know what? Maybe it's just because I grew up with that era, but I think Dwight Howard has become extremely disrespected in terms of historical importance. The fact that a Orlando Magic team at any point in history led by Dwight Howard made the NBA Finals blows my mind. Blows my mind.
This is true. This is when in his young.
I know he's much older, but I still think he's a solid veteran. I mean, the last time we saw him in the league was putting a ring on his finger.
That's true. However, last year when he played with Taiwan, he put up huge numbers, of course, but he also had he had knee trouble.
Was in the 3-point contest in Taiwan.
What? I didn't see that.
You gotta find that footage, Rich. Oh, it was fun.
But what I'm saying is he had some knee troubles. So I don't know. I just think it's going to be wasted money when Golden State doesn't have a dime to spare. Because they're way over the cap already.
No, I hear you. They're much better off with a guy like Usman Garuba. Get some young legs in there. But right. No, I think Dwight should still be in the league. I think he should have the right to retire from the league and that would be nice. That would be nice, but I agree with that. I just probably not on a contending team. No.
Yeah. Let Orlando retire.
Yeah, that works.
So last item in our NBA notebook is the new participation policy, where basically they listed certain guys. They had certain requirements, like you had to be an all-star and over the last 3 years and some other things. So it doesn't apply to everyone. I think the team most affected is Phoenix because it affects Durant, Beal, and who am I forgetting? Booker. So all three of them are on this list where they're supposedly not supposed to be sitting unless they have to sit. Now, the NBA's already said they're going to kind of be lenient, at least at the start. People are already saying there's easy ways to get around this. Why are they doing this? Well, it's pretty simple. Fans are tired of, fans are, a lot of fans don't live in the city. They travel maybe 4 or 5 hours, via car to go to the game. And then they find out, 15 minutes before the game, I came to watch, the Suns play my home team, and Kevin Durant and Devin Booker are sitting out for rest purposes.
Yeah. I mean, I got a perfect example for you, Rich. One of the last like trips I took with my pops, when I was younger to go see a game, I'm from Knoxville, Tennessee. There's not exactly a close by NBA team, pretty much equal distance to like Charlotte, Atlanta, Indiana, and Memphis even is a very far drive.
Right.
So, we want to go see a game. We drove up to Indianapolis to go see the Celtics play the Pacers. This was like 2012 or so, one of the last couple of Pierce KG years.
Right.
And, excited for the game, get to see my rookie Miles Turner. I still got that jersey. But, half the Celtics team was resting. Rondo wasn't playing, Pierce wasn't playing, KG wasn't playing. Matter of fact, Ray Allen wasn't playing. And, I got to see a riveting, Jonas Jerebko 28-point performance. And, I wouldn't say that was exactly
He is
what I was
the
hoping
best
for.
player in Swiss history.
Yeah, I agree, though. I like Jerebko. I always thought they should play him more, but that wasn't exactly what we paid a couple $100 a pop to go see on the Thursday night.
Right.
Yeah,
luckily,
line.
for the most part, when I went to see the Sixers, when I lived in that area, I only missed Doc once, and I don't know why he sat out so long ago, Dr. J, but I got to see him plenty of other times. Barkley always played, and AI always played. So I was lucky, but things have changed. Now, another, it's not just the fans are trying to please. They're also the TV people are complaining. And one of the reasons is that these rules apply to TV games, and they also apply more to road games than they do home games. So they're kind of like, if you want to sit your guys at home, we're okay with that. As long as it's not a nationally televised game, then that's a no-no. And so, but my idea, and I don't want to, I put down here, participation policy, good idea, bad idea, or wrong approach. And just like Zach Harper wrote today in The Athletic, I am 100% in agreement with him. I've been saying this forever. 82 games. Now, I know we've had 82 games for a long time. It's not, Oscar Robertson and Wilt Chamberlain, as far as I know, played 82 games. Okay? But if these players are going to insist on rest and the doctors think it's best and they want to extend their careers, then I really think we need to look at that. And from a fan perspective, I think ultimately, why do we watch college football in the NFL? Because every game matters. Even college basketball, those games are more important. Not every game matters, but it does if you're, say, like a Dayton or, one of those teams that maybe has a really good record, but they're in a conference that doesn't get a lot of bids. You can't afford to lose. So in a lot of ways, but in the NBA, the team who represented the East in the finals last year wasn't that far over 500 and was one loss away from not even making the playoffs. And they just went from the 8th seed all the way to the NBA finals. And so the regular season means squat, pretty much. All you got to do is get a little above 500, and then you're kind of good to go. All right. I had a little rant there, so I want to hear.
I agree with you, though, Rich. I think they should look at a 75-game schedule.
I was thinking 70, but yeah.
70, 75. Because you really break it down, like how many games are guys sitting, without, there he is, barring a little bit, barring injury, guys are sitting between 8-10 games a year. You don't necessarily know how many of those are healthy scratches, But I think like
I think
realistically,
it's
you don't need 82
pretty
games
unusual
to
for
know.
guys to play over 70 games these days. I think
Yeah.
you see most guys playing in the 50s and 60s.
Yeah. But my argument too is though, guys used to play all 82 all the damn
Right?
time.
Yes,
So,
they did. Yes, they did.
Like,
of course, a lot of them used to
with
probably
less
smoke at the locker room at halftime
yeah,
too.
seriously, with worse medical, with worse equipment, with worse diet. Like, if Charles Barkley at his peak weight was playing 82 games, why can't you?
Yeah.
I don't have any. You're getting paid millions, guys. Like, you're an athlete. Take care of your body. Go out and play.
You know, another solution if you want to keep the 82 game schedule, because they say, well, TV contracts aren't going to be as lucrative. Well, first of all, I think the players would have to take a hit, because if you're going to play 12 less games per team, then there's not going to be as much money coming in for ticket sales or TV contracts. So everybody's going to have to take a hit financially. If you don't want to do that, another approach is kind of the European approach. I hate to keep on going back to European basketball, but trust me, you know, they have learned some things that we don't seem to grasp. Is they let their backups play a significant portion of the game. It's about a 2-to-1 ratio. I mean, Luka, when he was on Real Madrid and they were winning EuroLeague and they were winning the Spanish League, he never played over 30 minutes a game. Never, ever. And now you have guys. Now you have guys that average like 35
40
minutes per game. CJ McCollum last year averaged 35 minutes a game. That's too much.
And they weren't that good.
Right.
They weren't
But that's
good.
too many minutes. What I'm saying is maybe, you know, the league agrees if you're going to play 82 games, then maybe limit your guys to 30 minutes per game, or unless it goes into overtime or something like that.
Yeah. No, I would be more my like feelings behind shortening the season or shortening the game have nothing to do with like the players' rest or bodies. Like they can handle it. My reasoning is competitiveness, the quality of the game from like a viewer perspective. I think shortening the season, all of a sudden you get to focus on heavier matchups. The TV games that are actually on are better because they have
more meaningful.
Yeah, you have fewer to pick through. You could centralize. You could actually build in more rest to the season, make it the same length but have less games. And if you did end up shortening the game itself, like I don't know if you've been to an NBA game recently, but the first half is pretty sleepwalky. You know, they're going up and down, you know, they're working, especially the vets and the sort of bench guys, they're really hustling. But, you know, you're kind of sleepwalking your way to 15, maybe 10 in the first half, and then you turn on the Jets second half and start putting up points. That's when the defense is played. You know, it seems like, you know, most NBA games are won or lost in the last 5 minutes. And in the in-between, there's not a whole lot of care, especially the deeper you get into the regular season. So I mean, those are my reasonings.
Here's one interesting thing. You know, we kind of tend to put this on the players, but apparently I've seen various reporters report that players actually, and this kind of surprises me, players don't want to be sitting out. And I'm thinking, is that true? Is that true? Because I think if you really wanted to play, they would let you, unless, I don't know, if it's like a meaningless game toward the end of the season, you already clinched your playoff spot. But again, why not just play lesser minutes? You know?
That's what minutes restrictions are for. If you're coming off an injury, you're going to play. We're talking about guys that are like bragging about getting used to playing 2-on-2 again, coming off of like a year-long injury. Like, you're playing 2-on-2 again? The season starts in like a month, dude. What are you doing? There's no difference between playing 2-on-2 and 5-on-5. It's just easier.
Right.
Like sorry, I had to rag on that.
I've rarely been double teamed when I played 2-on-2.
It's not happening.
One of my fondest memories is I used to have a buddy and we both were terrible basketball players, but a lot of times we go and play again, and we were both not very big, but we would often go, playgrounds, and a lot of times the basket would be taken by two other guys or whatever, and say, hey, you want to play? And you'd be surprised how much you could kick somebody's ass, even if they're like each guy's a foot taller than you, by just running the pick and roll. They don't know how to deal with it.
As it turns out, it works.
Yeah. All right, Doc. If you're there, I think we have Doc now. I wanted to get your thoughts on two things that we went over in the notebook before we close up the notebook, and I wanted to hear your thoughts on player participation, which we just talked about, and I also wanted to get your thoughts on the signing of Kelly Oubre.
Kelly Oubre, great fit. That's the win the Sixers needed. Everything we talked about last time we was here, he fits that mold, and just got to see if he comes off the bench or if he starts up with PJ Tucker. I think he should start, but we'll see what happens if Harden. But the key is still, I know a lot of Sixers fans doesn't care unless Harden is back or if Harden is not going to be here. So that's the major concern still. So it's a great signing. It would have been great if the hardest stuff didn't exist. I'd be excited, but since the hard stuff exists, it's kind of okay, but we still got a big problem in our locker room. We got a big contract with Harden, and we just got a lot of question marks when it comes to that still. So unless Harden comes back or he's leaving, I don't even want him to come back because I think the chemistry would be bad, but it doesn't. At this point, it's still, we got to get rid of Harden.
Right. It's kind of funny you opened up like you did, because before you got here, my first thought that I said to Cam is the reason why I like this signing so much is I think the Sixers no longer have to start PJ Tucker. So that's what I'm looking forward to, getting another shooter in there. So what about player participation? Cam and I, we realize it's not an easy problem to solve. Fans want to see the players. TV contracts rely on the players, but the doctors are saying and the players are saying, well, it's too tough of a schedule. But then we also pointed out that Wilt Chamberlain and Oscar Robertson used to play 82 games a year, and they probably both had cigarettes at halftime during the game.
And they played in Converses.
Yeah,
they
that's
played
true.
in
They
Converse.
played right. So
Yeah,
what are your thoughts about player participation? Oh, the other thing I wanted to point out, and because you bring a unique perspective, having covered both leagues, the NFL and the NBA, one of our solutions that Cam and I were talking about was, let's make the schedule a little shorter, 70 games. Cam said 75, I said 70, and make the regular season more meaningful like it is in the NFL.
Well, I think the key difference between the NFL and the NBA in terms of player participation is the guaranteed money. So you take out that guaranteed money and you got to actually work for your game checks. It's the same thing, the same concept you guys just brought up about Wilt Chamberlain. Wilt Chamberlain had to play because they wasn't even making that much money. And I don't think the contracts back then, everything wasn't how it is today with these fully guaranteed contracts. So that's the key. I don't really think it has anything to do with the number of games. Honestly, the players use that. I think the players use that more as an excuse. NBA season is long, but baseball is longer, and baseball has been longer for years now. It's all about that money. You take away that guaranteed money. You take away the fact that Ben Simmons just think that he could sit out and still get paid $170. Think about 100. You got to think about that amount. Ben Simmons, for example, one of my favorite. You already know how I felt about Ben. But $170 million for 5 years or 4 years. How much it was? Come on. If you could sit out, what do you sit out to if you're still getting paid? So it's like a mindset thing when you make so much money and you're going to get it regardless of what happens.
Right.
I think if the NBA really wants to change sitting out, change the contracts, make it not guaranteed. That's the only way. You got to touch those young guys' pockets. They're not touching their pockets. These guys just sit out. These guys don't even be injured. They could go out to the club. I got a headache. I'm out. I'm going to make the same money. In the real world, it's not like that, So,
and it's not that way in the NFL for a lot of guys too. Not a lot of all the sports, and it's kind of ironic because the sport you probably are at most risk to get hurt and it probably has the least guaranteed money in it is the NFL.
And that's how it is. That's why when players get injured, they cry. Like they're mad that they're injured. Like it's over. Now they gotta try to work back to get back. Ben Simmons get injured, LeBron injured, they good. They come back in 2 years. They don't care. Like, Deshaun Watson, for example, he wasn't injured, but I think he's one of like the only players, because he's a quarterback. The quarterbacks get a different leeway. That's like the quarterback's the only player that's similar to NBA players on the football field. So, I mean, that's what I really think it is. If you really want to change that, forcing players to play, hit their pockets, make it not guarantee money.
Right. That's a good thought. That's a good thought.
One hot take to bounce off of that too. If you want to cut down on guys resting, move the Atlanta Hawks out of Atlanta.
No,
because they're definitely rested after a night out in Atlanta on a back-to-back. They're not playing.
Yes, Atlanta is definitely has had a long reputation for having an interesting nightlife and a lot of nightlife options that can get you in trouble, especially with your wife. So, yeah. All right, so that wraps up our notebook, and now what we're going to do is we're going to preview the Eastern Conference, and we're not going to make any hard predictions yet. We will do that in our Fearless Forecast episode just before the NBA season. By the way, the season starts on October 24th, and training camps are going to be opening up very soon. The end of September, so we're getting close. But today we're just going to be going over I'd say the main goal for us today is to say what's changed and whether we think these teams are going to do better than they did last year. What do you think, gentlemen?
Sounds like a plan, Rich. Let's get it.
All right, so we'll just go in order of division. By the way, I didn't realize this, but really winning your division doesn't mean squat anymore. I don't even know why they have teams in divisions.
Yeah, they changed that.
Huh?
Yeah, they changed that before they used to matter a little bit. Kind of, you won a division, you automatically get like a top 4 spot or 5, whatever it is.
Right. So, for example, last year Miami won the division, but they were still the 7th seed and in a play-in game, even though they won their division. I think you should at least miss the play-in game if you win your division. But right now, divisions are meaningless, but we're going to organize them that way anyway because it's easy. So we'll start off with the Celtics. They were the 2nd seeded team in the East last year, 157 games. So I'll take turns asking you guys, what do you think about the Celtics in terms of what's changed? I'd say the main things that have changed is Grant Williams is gone, Marcus Smart is gone, KP comes in, but KP is currently injured and may not even participate in training camp. So we'll start with you, Doc. What do you think of the Celtics? Are they better off than last year, or are they not as good as last year?
The problem I have with them now, I heard Michael Brogdon is he having problems there. I don't know if he's asking for a trade. They starting 5 is still solid when KP is there. I think KP is the biggest part. I don't know about Boston yet. I still think Boston is the team. I still think they're number 1, but I don't know. I can't say they're better or not. Boston is a weird team. I don't know. Is this those 2 guys? Tatum and Brown, they just weird basketball players playing together. That's their team right there, those 2. I don't know, when you got those 2 guys, and when I look at the rest of the East, kind of got like the best duo in the East. So, I mean, I think they still be fine by just having the best duo on the court.
Yeah. By the way, Brogdon is very upset that he was involved. He was almost traded to the Clippers, and so apparently that hasn't yet been smoothed over. Cam, what are your thoughts on the Celtics?
I'm interested to see. I think, personally, I feel like a big part of the Celtics' issues last year was I mean, a kind of lack of direction in terms of style of play. They tried to go way more offensive minded, way more wing oriented than, the team that was very successful, which brought them to the NBA Finals, which was defensive based and forward based. I think their roster changes kind of indicate that they're going even more offense.
Yeah.
The problem is, I think the biggest strength of this roster is all front court, but the whole front court is injury prone.
Yep.
KP's list of injuries, Horford's another year older. Robert Williams can't stay on the court consistently.
Right.
And, now they've also kind of taken out that small ball option, letting Grant Williams essentially walk. I mean, that's really what it was. It was, him on a favorable deal or, bringing in another sort of star like KP. I wouldn't have built the team this way. They're kind of feeling the after effects too of Brogdon's injury history. He would have been traded. I don't know why he's so mad about the Clipper trade, because he was definitely in the trade for KP to begin with.
Right.
And that trade got waived because of his medical. That's the only reason that Marcus Smart isn't still wearing a green.
He injured his elbow last year in the playoffs, and I haven't even heard if he's recovered from that.
No, but the big thing is his knees. I mean, he's had knee injuries going back to Virginia. Right. And that's why he fell so far in the draft to begin with. Personally, I think this team's worse than they were last season. Not just because I'm a big Grant Williams fan, but because I think when the chips were down, Marcus Smart was the leader of that roster. You can argue about whether or not that's part of the problem with that team, but I think personally, Smart was, the most vocal leader and a defensive leader. And at the end of the day, if you needed a bucket and Tatum or Brown were kind of shying away from the spotlight in the moment or were not playing hot, he was going to take those shots for you. I don't know who's going to pick up that slack.
Well, he's going to take the shots and miss. So he wasn't that good.
But when you really look at his breakdown, it's not bad. And for clutch scoring, I mean, he shouldn't be the first option, but that's part of the problem is that he kind of was down the stretch. You didn't have Tatum and Brown taking those shots. I don't know. I think I don't think they're going to end. I think, again, one injury away from really falling out of contention in this division to take that first spot.
And that injury already might exist.
Yes.
KP is currently sidelined. We don't know if Brogdon has recovered from his elbow thing. Yeah. So
I think the ceiling of the team, they're still one of the best contenders, best bets to make the finals out of the East. But if I was going to be betting to pick the divisional winner, I might be looking more towards the Knicks or the Sixers.
No way.
No. If I was a betting man. This is why. But look at the roster, though. They're so injury prone. It's a disaster.
This is why you live on the West Coast, man. That's crazy.
There's no coast near me.
Nobody on the East Coast. There's nobody on the East Coast that will ever say the Knicks is going to win the division.
I just like the roster more. It's more the fact that I don't like the Sixers that much than it is that I like the Knicks. Somebody else has to win that division.
My thoughts on Boston is I kind of have to agree with Cam that Boston isn't as good as they were last year. Perhaps their starting five could be better if KP is healthy for most of the season. He's not starting this season off very well. Perhaps if Robert Williams stays healthier than he usually does, and perhaps if Malcolm Brogdon is healthy for the whole season to give them a third guard to go with starters, Derek White and Jaylen Brown. But this team just doesn't have the depth that it did last year. And, three of their best 8 players are injury question marks. And I'm including Al Horford, who maybe typically stays healthy, but is definitely not the player he used to be, and is getting up there in years. So, yeah, I got to think the Celtics are going to need so many things to go right to be as good as they were last year. If they're going to be better, you're going to have a lot to go right. Next team we're going to talk about is the Philadelphia 76ers, who were the 3rd seed in the Eastern Conference, 2nd in the Atlantic Division. Cam, we're going to take turns starting off here, so I'll start off with you. Sixers, by the way, won 54 games last year. You think this team is better or worse than they were last year? And, of course, we may not know that until the Harden situation plays out.
I mean, obviously, if the Harden situation doesn't get figured out soon, I think this team is clearly worse than last season. People are saying, he would have a hard time, actually holding out. But, I'm not going to bet against him holding out. I'm not going to bet against him showing up to training camp with a hamstring injury. He's done that before. Right. I just think this team would be so much better served, taking a simple, easy offer from the Clippers. Give me Norm Powell, give me some filler, give me some depth to surround Embiid with. Let me see if I can actually try and build a team around Embiid and not play superstar ball with him alone. To me, even if you get Harden back, you figure out that situation. This is still a top 2 team, top 3 team in the division. Still a contender, but I don't see that happening. If I'm working on the assumption that they're going to take an offer for Harden sooner rather than later, they're still probably a playoff team, but a lower seed. I'm talking 6 seed, 7 seed, maybe even a play-in team.
Right. I should have stated, what's going on new with this team. They brought in Patrick Beverley, who essentially replaces Shake Milton. They just signed Kelly Oubre, which we talked about earlier. They also brought in Mohamed Bamba and Philip Petrusev to back up Embiid, which is good because they've already lost Montrezl Harrell for the season. Another kid to watch out for is Taquavion Smith, combo guard who's now signed to a 2-way. I mean, I don't figure him to make a huge impact, but I think down the road he could be a player for them. So, Doc, by the way, Doc, I also found out that Danny Green's contract is not guaranteed. He has a bunch of different dates where they're going to guarantee parts of his contract. So Danny Green might not even make it through training camp.
That sounds good.
Yeah.
Sixers. I feel I don't know about the Sixers. I just feel like they're doesn't matter for them. The regular season doesn't matter. I don't know if they're gonna be good or better. Their season starts when the playoffs starts. So it doesn't. They could be the 1st seed, 2nd, 3rd. The past 4 or 5 years, they always finish top 4 seed, or they ended in way 2nd round. So I don't think I don't know which. The question was do I think they're going to be better? Get past the 2nd round? No, but that's me. That's being better to me. Getting past 2nd round. As being better is, I think last year they were 4th seed, if I could believe. Well, I remember. I think it was 4th seed last year.
They were 3rd.
Okay, 3rd. As being better, being 1st seed as a Sixers fan, if you're a Sixers fan, that's not mean they're better. That doesn't mean seed doesn't matter for that team. So I don't know. I don't think they're getting out the 2nd round though. So I don't think they're going to be better.
All right. My thoughts are if Harden returns, and even let's say he was 100% in, I think this team is basically same team as last year. Yeah, their depth has gotten a little better, but I don't think they're going to be different enough from last year to to make much more progress. However, if they move Harden and change the way that they play, and don't do so much hero ball with Embiid, then I think this team has hope. So right now, I'm going to say they look about the same as they did last year, maybe a little better off in terms of depth, but it all depends on what they get for Harden. I think what would be ideal would be like a quality point guard, not necessarily a starter type, but somebody, maybe a little. On maybe the same level as D'Anthony Melton. So maybe they have point guard by committee. And then hopefully they can somehow unload PJ Tucker in that mess and get a forward who can actually shoot to back up Tobias Harris and also play some defense. So, yeah. It's hard to say until we know what shakes out with Harden. But right now, to me, the Sixers got to move him to have hopes of winning an NBA championship. All right, so now we'll talk about the Knicks, who were the 5th seed in the conference. They won 47 games last year, which I believe was the same number as the Miami Heat. No, actually, they won more games than the Miami Heat, 3 games more. So what do you think about the Knicks, Doc? They really haven't done much in the offseason. They're not very different, except they added Dante DiVincenzo, and they got rid of Obi Toppin. Other than that, this team really the core of this team looks very similar to last year.
They most likely even going to finish worse than last year, or they're going to do the same thing they did last year. They didn't get better. Their team wasn't that good from the get-go. I just feel like, when you get a new player, I don't know, for some reason that first year always looked good when you get that one new player. But if you don't build on it, then he's not like a big superstar. But when you get that one player, you play better than what it is. I think they going to digress. Just like that same time when the Knicks made the playoffs that one year, and they went, I forgot, it was 2 years ago. They went to the playoffs, lost to Trae Young. And then the next year, they didn't make the playoffs. So it might be the same way. It may happen the same exact way. They was on a high horse when they went to when they played Trae Young in that first round and lost. They thought they was going to come back the next year and do the same thing with the same exact team. And no, it didn't happen. So I think it might happen the same way this year.
Well, I think that's very possible. Cam?
Yeah, I just think this is such a solid regular season team. They've got excellent depth. They've got
at guard and wing.
At guard. They've got some solid centers.
But they have nobody. They have nobody to back up Randall.
No, they don't. That's probably okay though. Randall's been pretty durable throughout his career, outside of the first couple seasons. But I think the big reason that I'm kind of high on the Knicks this year, especially if you're just looking division by division, is I don't really trust the Sixers to manage the Harden decision well. I don't really trust the Celtics' depth. I see the Knicks as kind of like the next up in that division. If the other teams in their region start, exhibiting the injury bug or struggling with play style, that they have continuity. And you got to hope that you get a little bit more out of RJ Barrett this year, a little bit more out of Brunson this year after, having some continuity in town. And, you get another solid season out of Randall. The tough thing is I don't think there's a ton of young talent that you're looking to take a leap in New York. But I think this team is like one trade away for a front court player from being very competitive in the East. Who that is kind of remains to be seen, but they've been lurking around Embiid for a long time at this point. I think if things go badly in Philly, if Harden can't be moved until the trade deadline and the team is, really suffering, I wouldn't doubt it if the Knicks could put together a really strong offer for a guy like Embiid, maybe even a guy like Karl Anthony Towns if he comes available. I don't know. I like the team that they have. I think they add just a little more talent, they're going to step up in contention. But, until then, I think it's just a very solid team. And and expect them to sort of kind of replicate their year from last year with maybe a slight bump to their wins.
I think in order for this team to be a serious playoff contender, they're going to have to move quickly or Grimes. And I know they want to get rid of Fournier, but there are not going to be many takers out there because he's about finished. And so quickly or Grimes for maybe somebody that can add a little more muscle, a little more height to this team. And because right now I see this team being very guard heavy, and the DiVincenzo signing only makes sense is if you move one of those young guys, because he's going to be preventing quickly and Grimes from getting serious minutes, which is not good for their development. And yeah, well, why have those guys if you bring DiVincenzo in? So one of those guys to me has to be moved. And if they don't do that, I don't see them being any better than last year. All right, so we'll move on to Brooklyn, who actually finished 6th in the East with 45 wins. Of course, their team changed dramatically after the Kevin Durant trade. This year, Brooklyn basically, first of all, who knows what's going to happen with Ben Simmons? He's talking a good game. He says he's healthy, says he's ready to perform. I think he even said he owed it to the fans, which was surprising. So what's really different about this team from last year? Well, they added Lonnie Walker. But yeah, I guess this team looks pretty much the way it did. I mean, in the draft, they got Noah Clowney, but he's clearly not ready. They've signed some guys like Harry Giles and Tendon Waterford and Darius Baisley to hopefully beef up, their front court. They also drafted Jalen Wilson, but he's more of a wing, small forward type. But, they brought in Baisley, Waterford, Giles, and I think they're hoping out of one of those three, all on non-guaranteed contracts, that maybe one will step up, because right now, in the old days, Cameron Johnson and Dorian Finney-Smith would have been considered, wings, but they're playing power forward these days for the Nets. So yeah, what do you think of this Nets team? They're pretty much how they ended the season last year, but Ben Simmons, of course, being the big wild card.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of look at this Nets team as like a play-in team. I wouldn't be shocked to kind of see them make a late season dive, kind of like the Mavericks did this previous season, where they may play a bit above their means in terms of the win-loss record, and then ultimately probably make the decision that they would rather kind of take the draft capital. I would imagine that we're going to see this team unloading assets at the trade deadline. I don't think they're really stoked to hold on to a guy like Dorian Finney-Smith if they know that they can get some first round pick equity for his rights. I mean, like you said, Ben Simmons is the ultimate wild card. You take every bet against it, but if he comes back and is even a shade of that first team all defense type of point guard that he was at one point in Philly, maybe they could make a little bit of noise. They could hop up into, a 6-7 seed. But I just don't see a Nets team that's led by Mikal Bridges, who is probably best utilized as an off-ball player, really, making a lot of waves in terms of like playoff contention.
Right.
Yeah.
I forgot to mention Jariq Whitehead was also drafted by the Nets. So they really had a nice draft. Unfortunately, none of these guys are really Whitehead is coming off an injury and might not even be ready for training camp. Clowney is young and certainly, he's undersized. I mean, he's just needs to add muscle. He's really skinny. And Jalen Wilson is probably never going to be a great player. He's probably, at best going to be a reserve. But Whitehead and Clowney, I think, have a lot of upside. They're just not ready. Doc, what do you think of the Nets?
I don't know yet. I think they got the potential to be great. If there was the 76ers Ben Simmons, I would think this is the perfect team for him. The way he's set up, a bunch of young guys that want to play defense and run the court and who can shoot threes. That's like the perfect team. He always wanted a team like this. But I don't know if I could Ben Simmons to get in. He's talking nice, but he was talking to me when he was like, I got let my fans like they was mad at me. He was talking about me. I was mad at him. So yeah. So when we get back, let's just see what he do this year. It's all about then. Hopefully, his coach let him play point guard. You know, his coach last year made him playing this point center. He's not a point center. He's not a power forward. You got to put him in the point guard position because that's just what he wants to play, and that's what he's been playing. So that's gonna be the key. Let him play point guard and let him run the offense the way it's not really running the offense, but let him get the ball and look for guys. Let him be the point guard. That's his best gifts is passing the ball. He never had a problem passing the ball ever in his career. Shooting, okay. Posting up, okay. Having heart, okay. But when it comes to passing, that's what he do. And last year, Zach Vaughn just took that away from him by making him look at Kyrie, look at KD, and get in the post and set screens, act like he's goddamn Nick Claxton. So hopefully this year he's a point guard. And if he beats the point guard, he's going to be more comfortable in himself and has more confidence in himself to play his game. So that's what I'm waiting for. The Nets is a mystery. They could be a surprise team depending on how he look.
Yep. I agree. I agree with everything you said. You know, this team does have a lot of athletes who can, 3-and-D types. It's funny as it's going to sound is you would think, the one thing that's missing on this piece is a player like Embiid. let's reunite Ben and Embiid, but seriously, I mean that's what's missing on this team. But they have a lot of youth, they have a lot of talent, they got guys that can play defense too. Finney Smith, Royce O'Neal, Mikal Bridges, and Simmons, of course, when he's back to his old self. So if Simmons, if they get like 50, 60 good games out of him, I think this team's definitely going to finish above 500 and be in playoffs. If not, then this team could miss the playoffs. And I think Cam's right. Then they're going to have to make some moves. But I like a lot of the pieces here. They just don't really have a real big. They're a small team, and so yeah. But that's kind of a good team to have when you have a point guard that's, close to 7 feet tall. If he plays. All right, so we'll finish in the East with the Toronto Raptors, who had a disappointing season last year, finished at 500. They were the 9th seed in the play-in game. What do we make of the Raptors? Well, I guess before you answer that, Doc, I'm going to run over some of the changes on the roster. Let me get down there. All right. So what's new for the Raptors? Well, we have Dennis Schroeder coming off being MVP of FIBA World Cup. They drafted Grady Dick because this team desperately needed shooting. They also, they added Jalen McDaniels from the Sixers, who didn't get a lot of run with the team last year. Of course, they'll have Jakob Poeltl for the full season. So they also have Marquise Noel coming in as a two-way player, Javon Freeman-Liberty as a two-way player. Those guys, especially Freeman-Liberty, was super in Summer League for what that's worth. So, and I guess, still when I look at this team, I'm like, there's still not enough shooters on this team. There's not enough guards on this team. So what do you think, Doc?
I don't know. I don't know about the Toronto Raptors. Maybe just blow it up. I don't know. Maybe they could go after and get Dame. I don't know. But they team, just blow it up. There's no problem blowing it up. You don't really have Scotty Barnes may not be that star you thought he was going to be. He took a big digression. If he digressed again in his third year or don't get better, then I think they should just look to blow it up. It's okay. You got your one ring. We never thought Toronto would ever get a ring. You got your ring kind of early, if you ask me. So, I mean, hey, just blow it up and look through free agency. Look through the draft and build again. You could keep Scotty Barnes if you want, but you make it get something for him if you want to take.
I don't think they're going to give up on Barnes yet.
No, I'm saying after his third year, if he doesn't turn out to be here. Siakam, If they give Siakam that Supermax, they insane. I hope not. don't even think about getting Siakam now. Let him walk or trade him. I'll trade him now. The best time to trade him would be at the deadline. So I'll try to trade him during the deadline. If you see the team is losing or whatever, and then get some pieces or picks and move on. Just blow it up, Toronto.
Interesting. After or during World Cup, it was brought up that Bogdanovic, who was the key to Serbia's run to the FIBA finals, that Atlanta was talking about trading him in part of a deal to get Siakam. The other thing you mentioned, Dame Lillard. I know he doesn't want to go to Toronto, but boy, this group with Dame Lillard, they would be tough. I mean, that's what's missing on this team. An explosive guard who can fill it up and play make and fill it up. And Dame Lillard would be perfect for this team. But I think without a player like that, I don't think they're going to do. They might do a little better just on sheer talent because there is a lot of talent on this player. But this team isn't constructed well. What do you think, Cam?
I just don't. No. I don't even particularly love the talent in Toronto. I'm a big Scotty Barnes guy. I think, anybody that really knows the NBA knows or follows young prospects kind of expects that sophomore slump from most guys. Yeah. Especially who have just an overwhelmingly enticing rookie season.
Yep. People start the game plan for you.
Yeah. He's going to be fine. What definitely
he'll be finer if he can shoot.
Oh, yeah. But again, not to continue to bring up Ben Simmons, but my problem with Ben Simmons was never that he didn't shoot. It was his play style. It was the fact that he was afraid to do most things on the court.
Right.
Scotty Barnes is not that. The shot needs development, but he's an excellent passer. He's very nice in the short post. Granted, he's not overly efficient at it yet. But I like his sort of future as a point forward that likes to play out of the post a little bit. Kind of like a Giannis light in a lot of ways. I think that's kind of his destiny as an NBA player. That being said, though, I hate this roster construction. I've always hated this roster construction. Since Kawhi left, this team doesn't have the correct distribution of talent to really compete. I'm not a fan
of many non-shooters for starters.
That's a big part of it. I mean, essentially right now, Pascal Siakam is probably their best 3-point shooter.
And that's not
good. That's not good. He's solid, but he also has to do other things for that team.
Right.
I think
also the primary rebounder and shot blocker. I mean, I know Pirtle's there, but
personally, I believe he's totally worth a max contract. I think Pascal Siakam has become almost underrated because of the roster construction in Toronto. But he and Barnes play the exact same position, and frankly, he and OG Anunoby play the exact same position, and they detract from one another's games, especially offensively.
Yeah.
That being said, though, I got to disagree with you on the Dame input. I don't think this team is close. It just doesn't fit. It doesn't mesh. They don't have enough shooting. They don't have enough size. They don't have enough flexibility in terms of offensive skills. Most of their guys do the exact same things. To me, they're best served by moving Siakam and getting what they can for him now, moving OG Anunoby, getting a couple of first-round picks for him, which they reportedly turned down upwards of 2 first-round picks for him at the trade deadline from Memphis, which I thought was insane. There's got to be some backrooming there as far as what was reported versus what was actually offered, but to me, he's not worth that much. I'm excited to see Gritty Dick. They had a really nice draft. He looked I think he looked more prepared for NBA play than we were probably expecting. But this is a middle of the road team. They would be lucky to be in play-in contention. I'm sure they'll also, like the Nets, kind of be in that borderline for a while. But I think it's time for this team to just tear it down and start over.
Okay. All right. So we'll move on to the Central. We talked about Giannis Light, so now we can talk about the Giannis. The number one seed, the Milwaukee Bucks, of course, were shocked by the 8th seed. Well, actually, Miami. Well, we know what happened in the playoffs. And this Milwaukee team has a very similar look to last year. Of course, they added some minor bench pieces. Robin Lopez joins his brother. Jay Crowder, they brought him back, even though they didn't use him much. They drafted Chris Livingston, a wing out of Kentucky. They drafted Andre Jackson, who's kind of a utility knife, but he needs to be able to shoot to be a great player. They also brought in Malik Beasley from the Lakers to be a backup shooting guard. They signed Ty Washington to a two-way. Drew Timme is on an Exhibit 10 with them. So that's what's changed with Milwaukee. But basically, the core is still the same. Chris Middleton didn't stay healthy last year. I think that was part of the demise of this team. But this team is getting older. Drew Holiday is starting to show some signs of getting old. Brook Lopez. What do you think? I mean, Milwaukee last year won 58 games, one more than Boston. Better or worse than last year?
I think they're definitely worse than last year. I'm genuinely worried about the direction of this team in general.
So is Giannis.
Yeah, I mean, that's already starting that process. It won't be long before he's in all-out trade talks, I'm imagining.
Yeah.
I think in my mind, and we kind of discussed this in our off-season grades article too, but this season and kind of the direction of this team comes down to Chris Middleton in my mind.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I think one of the most underrated and I think difficult things to do in the NBA is come back into a season without an off season, which was Middleton's reality last year. He was rehabbing. That's what his off season was. Just kind of got thrown back into the season, expected to produce at that borderline all-star level that we're used to seeing from him. But I don't think he quite got back to that point this previous season. You could definitely tell in the playoffs. If he can get back that mid-range killer game and the 3-point shooting ability, and they can. He's a good defender. He's a good defender too, but he's so important to them offensively because without him, that the paint gets so packed for that team, and the spacing just doesn't work for Giannis. And really, they don't have a clutch scorer without Middleton. I mean, Giannis is great in the clutch, but if you need a three, you can't go to him.
Right.
That was always Middleton's role. If he can get back to that level, maybe they're a championship contender. If he looks creaky, I'm really worried. I think I wouldn't be shocked to see them considering trading Giannis at some point in the next year.
Or somebody like Holiday. I think Holiday.
Yeah, I think the short term
would be more likely to make him happy. Not that I'm saying there's anything wrong with Drew Holiday, but Drew Holiday doesn't have a lot. He's teetering right now on being an all-star. Probably not an all-star anymore. Probably not an all NBA defender anymore.
And he's openly discussed that he would like to retire at the end of his contract.
Wow. I didn't realize that.
I don't understand why people aren't talking about it, but he's literally discussed it. There's quotes behind this.
And
if he's done, the team's done.
Do you realize that they still don't have a legitimate number 2 point guard on this team? Now we talked about this.
Javon Carter was very solid for them last year.
And we talked about this much. What is this team going to do if Drew Holiday gets hurt? They have one ball handler on this team beside Andre Jackson. Andre Jackson's a ball handler, but he's not going to see the floor this year until he can shoot.
Yeah, I think if that is the case, you'll probably see a lot of Grayson Allen at point. Mostly leaning on a combination of Middleton and Giannis to handle the ball.
Right.
But
But that's not a good season. That's not a good situation to be in if you're looking to win the NBA championship.
Absolutely not. And
they should look at Cameron Payne.
I had such a hard.
Cameron Payne is sitting out there. Sign him.
Yes. I have such a hard time rating this team's offseason because on one hand, they had to re-sign these guys. They weren't going to find a replacement for Middleton. They weren't going to find a replacement for Brook Lopez. They weren't going to find a Jay Crowder replacement. But at the same time, they've locked themselves into this. I think
it might have. You might have, instead of bringing in Crowder, you could have brought in the guy.
Yeah, Crowder,
Lakers.
you could have.
The Lakers just signed. Why not bring him in? You know,
they got Jay Crowder at a minimum deal. I think.
Well, so did the Lakers get Christian Wood at a minimum deal. And the thing I like about Christian Wood is he's an offensive player, and there aren't many offensive players on this team.
That's true. The amount of money that they gave up for Brook Lopez, I just don't agree with. Especially when you have to sign his brother just so that he doesn't sign with the Houston Rockets.
Right.
Arguably
Bobby Portis is better than Lopez, or at least as good.
And personally, a team that let Sandro Mamukelashvili walk for nothing. And now he could end up being a starter and or like a sixth man for the Spurs.
Right. And here's the other thing about their young players. First of all, they don't have a lot of young talent on this team.
No,
and we said, I'll say it for the third time, Andre Jackson's a great player, but he's not going to get on the floor until he can shoot. Chris Livingston actually has a lot of talent, but he didn't even hardly play in college, so he's a long ways away from contributing. And Marjan Beauchamp, great athlete, great defender, but he can't shoot either. This team needs shooters around Giannis, and all their young guys. First of all, I don't think any of those three young guys I mentioned have anything like all-star potential. I think, we were expecting Andre Jackson to be a really good utility player, and Chris Livingston, maybe a decent shooter off the bench. And Beauchamp, again, another.
I think Beauchamp could easily become a 3-and-D guy.
Yeah.
I think that's kind of.
He's the closest to being able to contribute.
Yeah. And it's taken him a few years to get there. I mean,
right. Yeah, and he's still young.
Developmental story.
He's still young. Yeah. All right.
I don't see. I see Cleveland overtaking this team in the division. I'm sure we'll get on to them in a second, but I just don't. I don't see it for this Bucks team. It starts to make you think if their championship run was maybe a little bit fluky, running into a hampered Nets team and a hampered Atlanta Hawks team and so on. Maybe they got a little bit lucky that year.
Yeah, just kind of like Toronto did the year they won it.
Yeah,
I hear you. All right, so we'll move on to the I almost called it the Cleveland Browns. By the way, if Doc's mother or sisters or brothers are looking for him, he disappeared. I don't know what happened to Doc. So it's just Cam and I again. So the Cavs were the 4th seed, made a nice surge up the standings. 4th seed in the East last year, 2nd in the division, 51 wins. What's changed with them? Well, probably the biggest thing that's happening is we don't know what the story is with Ricky Rubio, who said he needed a mental health break, an indefinite mental health break. So that leaves their backup point guard position wide open. They brought in free agents Max Strus, nice shooting wing from Miami. They brought in George Niang from the Sixers. He's undersized 4, who also is a good shooter. They traded for Damian Jones, who I'm not sure why is still in the league. They brought in Tristan Thompson on a non-guaranteed deal. Tristan Thompson, of course, played for years for the Cavs. They also brought in Ty Jerome to be a potential backup point guard. And other guys who could compete for that spot are Sharif Cooper, who's signed to Exhibit 10, Craig Porter, a very underrated rookie. He did excellent in Summer League, is signed to a 2-way. They are the prime candidates to be the number 3 point guard with Jerome being the backup, assuming Rubio doesn't come back to the Cavs. They also drafted Emoni Bates, who had an excellent summer league, pleasant surprise. And he's on a two-way, but I could definitely see him. He's looking like he's going to be a nice scoring six-man type of player in this league. Maybe even a starter. Was really impressed with his effort in summer league. So, what do you think about the Cavs? Have they gotten better? Have they gotten worse? Or are they the same?
There's no like flashy signing for this team.
Yeah, Strus being the most
they're
notable.
kind of individually, they're pretty unexciting, right? Max Strus, had a good playoff run, very solid shooter, solid defender, can play up a little bit in size for a wing, defends his position well. George Niang, kind of the opposite. He's a good corner shooter. The hope with him is that, maybe he could turn into sort of a stretch four, but he is not yet been a good enough rebounder to sort of earn that moniker. You got to be excited about grabbing Emoni Bates with the 49th pick. In our draft grades, they're pretty low in terms of grade. But that's because they didn't have a whole lot of draft equity.
He was their only pick.
Yeah, he was a flyer. There's
Right.
a reason that he fell so low in the draft.
Right.
That being said, I really like what he could fit, what his fit could look like in this team. To me, their biggest problem last season was that they did not have a wing, and they also didn't have an option for when one of Jarrett Allen and Evan Mobley were off the court in the front court. And I think the guys that they've brought in have given them a variety of options for both of those problems. Max Strus is going to be the perfect solution for a corner shooter. George Niang can help you out, hopefully, as a little bit of that stretch four option as a backup. And I'm with you, Rich. I think Emoni Bates, he could become a starter sooner rather than later. I mean, he's got a clear NBA ready skill with his shooting, and I think his scoring in general. Like he's a good slasher. He's good with the ball in his hands.
Mm-hmm.
And especially if you got a stretch of the season where one of Garland and
Donovan
Mitchell are injured for a period of time, he's going to help you out with that ball handling quite a bit. I think we've just been kind of waiting for this team to put it together and have just the right pieces. And you got to think, with another year of development for Evan Mobley, this team's going to be really scary. I like what the ceiling of this Cavs team looks like.
Mm-hmm.
Defensively, they're solid. And if they can figure out that offensive fit with the two big system, they're going to be a much more threatening playoff team than they were last season.
I agree. One thing I would like is a little more beef in the front court. The Knicks really beat them up in the playoffs on the inside. Isaiah Mobley was awesome in Summer League. I would like to see his contract upgraded or bring in somebody. I think Tristan Thompson, could be that guy maybe 5 years ago, but not now. So, Dean Wade he's a great shooter, great offensive player, but he's not going to cut it as a defender on the so I think they need a little more defense in the front court to complement Mobley and Allen. All right, so the next team, I probably should add, I agree. I think Cleveland has a chance to overtake Milwaukee in this division, depending on how everything works out. So I think we haven't been very positive on most of the teams we've talked about so far, but I think this team, I don't think they've made huge changes, but the changes they did make were positive, and you throw that in with their overall youth, and you think that is also going to move them in the right direction. So I think of all the teams we talked about so far, this team is definitely moving in the right direction more than most. So, all right, so the next team up is the Chicago Bulls. They were the last team to get in the playoff structure. They were 10th in the East, which put them in the play-in game. They actually only won 40 games, so that put them under 400. When we look at the Bulls, they too don't have a ton of changes. They brought in Torrey Craig as a backup wing forward. They brought in most of their moves were just keeping the players that they had, like Kobe White and Ayo Dosunmu and Vucevic, and they also brought in Andre Drummond. In the draft, they only had one pick, and that they used on Jalen Phillips, a very raw but promising forward out of Tennessee. Don't see him making a big impact. They still have Dalen Terry, was their top pick last year. He didn't play well in Summer League, so I'm a little worried about him. They also signed Adama Sanogo, and he's on a two-way with them. And Javon Carter. They brought in Javon Carter to give them another option. Of course, they have a lot of different options besides Zach LaVine at guard. None of them are really standout. You know, they're all kind of like, they're different players, but in terms of level, of what kind of level they are, you know, overall, Kobe White, you know, pretty good scorer. You know, Javon Carter, pretty good defender. Caruso, pretty good defender. Dosunmu, well, he does a little bit of everything. But none of them, you know, knock your socks off. So this team, to me, just hasn't done enough to get out of mediocrity.
Yeah, this is the end of my positivity reign, Rich. I hate this roster. I can't stand the way it's constructed. I mean, just think about this. They could have Franz Wagner on their roster right now if they didn't sell out and trade for Vucevic mid-season a couple years back. I think this roster is atrociously built, and I don't have much to say about them other than that. I hated their offseason. That, you know, I would have liked to see them choose between guys like Ayo Dosunmu and Kobe White. You know, why are you going to spend the money to re-sign both of them when you're also shelling out money to get Javon Carter, who plays the exact same position?
And you also have Carlik Jones on an non-guaranteed contract, and he has played very well in the G League, played very well in FIBA World Cup.
Yeah.
He's not going to get
Not to mention, they don't fit on the court at the same time as a guy like Zach LaVine, Alex Caruso, throw in DeMar DeRozan, who's basically been playing power forward for them for the past season.
Right.
I despise the roster construction for this team. And on top of that, you have to hate the absolute gut punch that is Lonzo Ball's injury. It's going to be a long time if we ever see him on the court again.
Right. It's already been announced this season. And actually, you know what? The NBA gave them a waiver, so they could have signed a significant free agent. So they could have went out and signed somebody who ended up, you know, playing, you know, in Europe.
I believe a chunk of that dead cap that they converted with the medical waiver turned into the money to re-sign Kobe White, Dosunmu, and Javon Carter.
Are you sure about that? Because I thought
I'm pretty sure.
I thought they had something like up to like $12,000 to sign a free agent.
Well, each of them is pretty well.
Oh yeah, they're all making about $8 million. I think they're all making about $8 million a year.
Yeah, Carter's pretty close to 10, if not 10, if I remember right.
Right. Okay. We don't need to struggle with details, but yeah, I should have mentioned Ball is done for the year. So now we move on to the Pacers, a team I am bullish on. And we talked about a little bit earlier in the show. They were out of the playoffs last year. They weren't in the play-in. They only won 35 games. But what's changed with the Pacers? Well, if my depth charts will cooperate here, I will tell you. So big signing in Bruce Brown, getting him from the world champion Nuggets, great utility player, great six-man type, tremendous defender who has an improving shot. They drafted Ben Shepherd, a very athletic sharpshooter from Belmont. And I don't know if he's ready to contribute right away, but should be interesting. They also drafted Isaiah Wong, a nice combo guard out of that very successful Miami of Florida program. He's on a two-way. They also drafted Mojave King, but it looks like he's going to play on Australia this year, kind of a draft and stash. They traded for Obi Toppin. And they also, their big draft pick was Jerice Walker out of Houston, had a rough summer league. Not sure how he's going. They also have Daniel Tice, who was one of the stars for Germany in World Cup. I don't know if Walker is going to see a ton of playing time, assuming they keep Tice. And at center, it's the same, the usual suspects, Miles Turner, Jalen Smith, Isaiah Jackson are all there. And they signed Oscar Shigwe to a two-way. So, and then, of course, we talked about Buddy Hield might be traded because they can't seem to reach an agreement on an extension. So, Cam, I'm liking the way this roster is built. You know, a lot of different styles of players. Some can play defense, some can shoot. Tice, to me, is a player that they should keep around just because of his experience that could help the youngsters. I think if Miles Turner plays healthy and Buddy Hield stays on this roster, you're definitely looking at a playoff team.
Yeah, and Miles Turner was actually hyping himself up as an all-star candidate this year. So he's got high aspirations for his season. And I think he's capable of it. He's an excellent NBA defender. To me, when I'm looking at this roster, I still think this team sort of goes as far as Ben Mathurin can improve. I think they really do believe in him, and he kind of flew under the radar at Summer League this past year. But he looked like he was very comfortable scoring the ball. And he's a solid defender. He's shown some major improvement in that area across the
I think
NBA
Ben.
team.
I think Ben has all-star potential.
I agree. I think, kind of if you haven't gotten a chance to see him play, he's a little bit of like physically, he's like somewhere between like a Holiday brother and a Anthony Edwards type athlete. A little lankier.
Yeah, he's thinner.
A little more of a quickness sort of oriented player.
But definitely has that explosion.
He has the explosiveness, and he's a really, really good shooter, both off the catch and off the dribble. He moves really well without the ball too,
and he also can attack the rim.
He can. A little bit bigger than you probably expect too. He's about 6'6", 6'7", somewhere in between. I just think, you've got Halliburton in house. You've got an absolute glut of front court talent. The only thing that there really had been missing, it was a wing that could give them solid minutes, and they got that with Bruce Brown. I would not be shocked to see this team, move up to even like a 4 or 5 seed in the East, depending on how the chips fall with injuries and who knows. But I like the balance of the roster, and they've got excellent depth at every position.
And they also have a lot of, some of these teams just like have no potential, but this team has some players who could emerge, like
totally
this year and like be a real solid NBA player. Guys that have just kind of been, not really hitting their stride yet. Nebhard, Neesmith, Wara, Isaiah Jackson, even Jalen Smith. Maybe these guys could take the next step, and that's not even counting Shepherd and Walker. The rookies.
Yep, I think probably the biggest question mark at this point is who is their sort of go-to clutch scorer. We've seen some good moments. From a few of their guys, but I'm just not sure if Halliburton is your go-to guy down the stretch.
No.
And Mathurin, to expect him to do that at a playoff level in year 2, I'm not liking those odds.
Yeah, that's
if
why I want them to.
It's
that's
probably
why I like
Buddy Hield.
Right, Hield.
Yeah, it's probably Buddy Hield. So, if they can find a way to if there's a trade to be had there where they can sacrifice some of that depth to maybe, hint, go get Paul George again. Maybe they become like a real contender in the East. But until then, I think they're a scrappy, first round out, maybe sneaky second round type of playoff team. That's what I really see them as.
I'm looking at them as a first round out. I'm thinking they're going to be somewhere between the 5 and the 8. But definitely in. All right, another team that's definitely moving in the right direction, and that's the Detroit Pistons. They finished last in the division. They were last in the conference. They only had 17 wins. Of course, we know this team is loaded with talent, and they added to that in the draft. So they already had Cade Cunningham, Jaden Ivey, Isaiah Stewart, Jalen Duren, and then they drafted Osir Thompson. He was their first pick in the first round, and they also added Marcus Sasser. I wasn't super high on that pick as a first round selection. I thought they could have gotten better value than Sasser. And they also in a salary dump by the Nets, they also got Joe Harris, who will give them shooting, something this team sorely lacks. In fact, the way Detroit is built right now, they actually have some log jams of talent, because they also added Monte Morris at point guard. So now who's your backup point guard? Is it Monte Morris? Is it Killian Hayes, who actually started to look like a real NBA player last year? And they also have Sasser. And then, of course, at the big position, they have Stewart and Duren, and they also have Marvin Bagley and James Wiseman. So there are this team could make moves if it wanted to, to maybe start contending right now. I think this team's going to be a force in the future. I just don't know if they're ready to make the playoffs this year.
Yeah, no, they're not ready for the playoffs just yet, but I think people are probably underrating them a little bit as far as win-loss column, because I don't know if people forgot, but Cade Cunningham was basically out for the season last year.
Right, yeah.
And he's back. He's had a healthy... Yeah, he looked great in the games that he played last season.
And he looked great for the select team when they practiced against Team USA.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, he had a healthy offseason to actually, work on his game. Right? He's not going to come into the season just trying to get in shape. He's ready to get out there and play again. And I don't know if people appreciate just how good of a playmaker he is, how good of an individual scorer he is. I think I would say that I'm probably higher on him than I am on a guy like Paolo Banchero in terms of previous first round picks, number one picks, even. And add to that, they've got a lot of front court talent that I really like. I think Wiseman can still pop off the screen every once in a while. You got the young kid out of Memphis who looks excellent, Jalen Duren.
Yeah,
I mean, a physical specimen. I've seen people comparing him to Dwight Howard, like prime Dwight Howard, just a guy that can dominate off of his pure athleticism and game knowledge. They brought back Isaiah Stewart on a pretty sizable contract. They're still saying that he's developed a 3-point shot. I'll believe it when I see it, but I love what he brings to the game.
Yeah.
And you got to hope you get another year of development out of Jaden Ivey. That's a guy that we were comparing to, a guy that we just talked up in Ben Mathurin.
And we were also comparing him to Ja Morant.
Exactly. I mean, the talent on this team is excellent. And I think they've got a selection of young guys that fit together too. Are they going to compete next year for playoffs? I don't think so. But are we going to see a heck of a season out of one or two of those guys? Oh, yeah. Yeah, they're going to look really good this year.
And I wouldn't be surprised if they doubled their wins, if not more.
Yeah.
All right. So we'll move on to the Southeast. Miami Heat finished first in that division. Of course, that doesn't mean anything anymore. It kind of bugs me. Why have divisions? So they finished 7th in the East and then went on to make a run at the NBA Finals. Of course, they have long been linked to the Damian Lillard, and we have yet to see that transpire. So in the interim, they lost Max Strus. They lost Gabe Vincent via free agency. In the draft, they added Jaime Jaquez. And he was their only draft pick, right? So they signed a bunch of interesting guys for 2-ways and 3-ways, including Drew Peterson, friend of the show, was signed to an Exhibit 10. Jamare Boye, who's been on the show, they signed him to a 2-way. Cole Swider of the Lakers, he's signed on Exhibit 10. They also brought in Thomas Bryant via free agency, and they brought back Josh Richardson via free agency. So, yeah, talent overall, talent-wise, I think really this team looks very similar. You know, when you look at like the top 8 guys, the question is somebody like Nikola Jovic, is he ready, who played very well in World Cup, is he ready to become part of the rotation? And that would kind of change things for this team. Of course, at least I'm excluding a Dame Lillard trade. But yeah, you can approach it any way you want. I don't know if that trade's ever going to happen.
Yeah, I mean, if you're just looking at the roster as is, I mean, going into the last season, I wasn't high on them anyway.
Yeah.
You know,
right. Yeah.
This is a team that was playing a lot of undrafted guys.
Yep.
You know, are they going to continue to find a way? Like the Podfather Bill Simmons would say, the zombie heat, they will rise again. I guarantee it. They're going to be in the playoffs. I don't know how, but they're going to make it. You know, personally, I'm a big Josh Richardson fan. He was a huge part of kind of setting this Miami Heat culture, because he was a part of those teams that, you know, those guys were scrappy. You know, they were kind of built around Chris Bosh before his heart problems sort of took over and ended his career early.
Mm-hmm.
I really like what he could bring.
And he had the best years of his career with the Heat, and that wasn't that long ago.
And, you know, so much of the league, it comes down to opportunity. He's been on the move. He's been a part of trades the past few years. I think there's more talent there than he's been able to show in previous seasons. And I know he's a heck of a locker room guy, already has that relationship with the team. I think he's going to be a sneaky, powerful addition for them. And at the same time, too, like, to me, historically, the Heat are kind of like the Patriots of the NBA. You know, they let a lot of these guys walk in free agency. They go get this big contract. You know, there's a sign and trade that they're involved in. This is what happened with Richardson in the first place. That's how they got Jimmy Butler, if you don't remember.
Yep.
They let these guys walk, and everybody thinks of it as like, oh, well, the Heat are, you know, selling the farm. They're letting talent walk out the door again. But then they just find somebody to replace them over and over and over and over. I'm not that worried about losing Gabe Vincent. I'm not that worried about losing Max Strus, especially when you got a guy like Jovic waiting in the wings. Right. You're bringing back a guy like Tyler Hero, who, again, played virtually 0 playoff minutes for them last year in a finals run. The Heat are going to be solid with or without Dame Lillard. Now, if they make the trade happen, the ceiling of this team, and I would say even the expectation of this team, is a championship. If you can maintain that core of Jimmy Butler, Bam Adebayo, Dame Lillard, and some sort of supporting cast, I love that team. I think that's automatically my favorite in the East, if they can make it happen.
Yeah. Because as we've known, there's nobody right now standing out in the East. We're all like, you know. And so I think as this team stands, you know, maybe they're the 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th regular season seed, and then watch out in the playoffs. If they get Lillard and they don't have to give up any of their, say, top 5 players, which to me, well, actually they're going to have to give up one of their top 5, and that'd be Hero. But if they can keep Caleb Martin, Richardson, Butler, Adebayo, if they can keep those four and then add Dame to it, they probably are the favorite to win the East. Just they won't have a lot of depth, but hell, we keep on saying that every year. They have no depth, and every year somebody pops up for them, as you said. So, and this year, I think the biggest candidate to pop up for them is Jovic. Maybe Jaime Jaquez, because he's such a Miami Heat type player, such a scrapper. Of course, he got hurt in the summer league, so we shall see. But
the other guy to keep an eye on is going to be Haywood Highsmith this year.
Yeah,
he had some moments in the playoff run this past year. He didn't necessarily pop off the screen all the time, but a guy that could slot down to the power forward for them, and even played some backup center minutes occasionally.
Yeah, and he can
really
also play. He can also be a backup wing. That's his natural spot. Yeah, I agree. He did have some nice minutes in the playoffs. All right, so now we go to the Hawks, who I think have really underachieved the last couple of years. You look at their lineup on, their roster on paper, and you're pretty impressed. But that never seems to come through. The last thing I heard was they were trying to send, I think, DeAndre Hunter and AJ Griffin to Toronto, and Toronto wasn't going for that, I believe, for Siakam. And then there was also talk about Bogdanovich being part of that trade. But as this team stands, looks much like last year, I think. Not a lot of significant changes. Of course, Sadiq Bey will be with them for a full season, and John Collins is gone. So if you figure he and Jalen Johnson, who also started to come alive last year, the high pick out of Duke 2 years ago, so they figured to pick up the minutes that John Collins took with him to Utah. I think AJ Griffin's probably in line for some more minutes this year. And they have Patty Mills right now on the roster. And he actually, if you look at the roster, the only other really point guard that they have on a regular contract is Kobe Buffkin, and he's not really a point guard. That should be interesting. But of course, they start 2 point guards in Trae Young and Dejounte Murray. So basically, I'd say the big change here is John Collins is gone, and
to me, they had one of the worst off seasons in the NBA. I just kind of like the Bulls. I don't understand why we're going to continue to beat our head against the table and hope that this team has a playoff chance. We've seen the flashes of it, but ultimately a team built around Trae Young is going to be a defensive disaster just about no matter what you do. And beyond that, they've got a ton of depth and a ton of talent, but there's not a clear second star. DeJounte Murray is a really, really, I believe, a starting point guard in the NBA, but
yeah,
I don't think he fits with Trae Young. I think Trae Young kind of hampers his ceiling as a player and as a creator. And then you look down the roster and you start to wonder who is next. Is it DeAndre Hunter? Is it Bogdanovich? Is it
Sadiq Bey?
Clint Capella?
Is it going to be one of the Duke kids, Jalen Johnson or AJ Griffin?
Yeah, personally, I think it's AJ Griffin. What this team should be looking to do is, I would imagine, move off of DeAndre Hunter, who they've been waiting on for years now. He's a talented guy, but he just hasn't been able to stay healthy enough for a long period of time.
This is true.
To really make any improvement.
Wouldn't that be funny if he goes to Toronto? It's like they need
becomes a star. Yeah.
No. I'm just saying he's just another one of those Toronto-like players that they already have like 10 of.
Yeah. I was thinking I would take that trade if they wanted OG Anunoby, but that's not enough to get Pascal Siakam to me. I love AJ Griffin, but if I'm taking DeAndre Hunter, I'm like, this is just more of what we already have in Toronto. I'm good.
What if it was Bogdanovich and Griffin? to me, that's enough.
That's still. I don't really care about either Hunter or Bogdanovich. If I'm not competing, I don't care about their contracts. It's just somebody to take. Although you probably want Bogdanovich more at the moment. I think he's probably a little more valuable.
I want him on my team any day.
Yeah, I think he's probably more valuable as a flip.
Not necessarily as a starter. I want him as my sixth man.
Yeah,
which is the way they use it right now.
No, he should be on the Bucks right now. He should have been on the Bucks the past 3 seasons.
Right.
And we'd be talking about them as a much better team this year, but that didn't work out. And it's still going to come down to Trae Young to me. I'm just not a Trae Young believer. I refuse to believe that you can produce an efficient enough offense to sacrifice that much defense with a point guard like him. I just don't believe it. I'm also looking for the Clint Capella trade this year. There's a lot of guys. I just think this is going to be a recycled roster come the trade deadline. There's a lot of moves that need to get made. I think Capella starting to look a little bit creaky.
Oh yeah.
I think it's time for them to look towards Onyeka Okongwu.
Right.
Really like his potential. But man, this is the worst division in basketball, I think, right now too. I mean, we're talking about the Heat as like the clear favorites to win this division, but I don't even think the Hawks
it's there for the taking,
either.
Right. It's there for the taking, but I also didn't like the pick of Kobe Buffkin. I don't know why he rose up.
I love it.
Yeah, I don't know why he rose up board so much. I mean, he's a good player, but I mean, people were acting just, I don't know why. All of a sudden, out of nowhere, all of a sudden, everybody loved him. It's like,
and again, we've beaten it to death, but they gave up John Collins for the ghost of Rudy Gay and a second round pick,
who's already been cut, as far as I know.
And then turned around and took Ty Washington and Usman Garuba, who we just talked about signing 2-way contracts.
Yeah, they both are on different teams. Yeah,
with contending teams, they signed 2-way contracts. They flipped them for Patty Mills. They packaged them for Patty Mills.
Right.
Why?
Yeah.
To me, I think this team is we've talked about this when they signed DeJounte Murray in the first place. This is a team that is like dabbing their toes in the water of trading Trae Young. I wouldn't be shocked to see that happen by the trade deadline if they flounder out the gate. That's why you go and get a guy like Patty Mills if you need a vet in the room.
Interesting.
I think that's going to happen sooner than later.
I think this team, as it stands, without a Siakam trade or some other kind of trade, I think that they might do a little better than they did this year, just because of their sheer youth that we talked about, like with the Pistons and a couple other teams. They still are, on the younger side as a team, and so incrementally they should be getting better. But I don't.
There's a team in this division I like more.
Huh?
There's a team in this division that you could say the same thing about that I like more.
Okay, well, we got 3 more to go.
We'll get there.
Yeah. So now the next team we're going to talk about is the Washington Wizards, who have made so many changes. It's going to be tough to list them all, but they, believe it or not, we're 11th in the East, because just out of the playoffs, and they won 35 games this year. So it might be just as easy just to say what's left of this team, or who's come in, but at guard they kind of have a mix now of Tyus Jones and DeLon Wright would seem to be the primary candidates to start. They now have Jordan Poole, which was part of the Chris Paul deal, and they also still have Johnny Davis, who had a horrible rookie season last year, and Landry Shamet. So they're their options at shooting guard. They're the small forward. They have Corey Kispert and Denny Avia. Neither of them have really lived up to their potential so far, though I never thought Kispert had a high upside to begin with. And then they drafted Bilal Coulibaly, who is pretty raw. I mean, just to tell you how good Koulibaly is or isn't, I don't know if he turned down the option. I didn't hear anything about it, but he wasn't on the French World Cup team. So that might say something right there about his readiness to play in the NBA. I mean, just last year at this time, he was playing not even in the top French division. So now we're talking about in less than a year going from the French second division to the NBA. So I think it's going to be a while before we see Koulibaly come around. They got Danilo Gallinari from the Celtics. He'll be a power forward if they keep him, along with Kyle Kuzma. And then, of course, center, they have Daniel Gafford, and they added Mike Muscala. And for God knows what reason, they just re-signed Taj Gibson to a guaranteed veteran minimum. So they guaranteed his money. They also, for you World Cup fans, have Xavier Cooks, who played very well for Australia. And he's a power forward. So, to me, the Wizards have just thrown together a bunch of pieces, and I don't know if any of these guys, except for maybe Koulibaly, will be on the team like 3 years from now. And I'm thinking that they might be the worst team in basketball.
I'm with you, Rich. I know we're trying to not get into predictions, but I think this is clearly the worst team, not only in the East but in the NBA. That you can go down the list of similar record teams. They all either have at least a clear star and or a developmental star, or they've got a crop of like young talent that we're just kind of waiting to develop.
This team has
neither. Got nothing. They got Kyle Kuzma, who's good. He's solid. He's going to be begging for a trade by the trade deadline. That's for damn sure. And, they're going to have Jordan Poole, putting up 30, 35 a game.
Yeah, great fantasy option.
And he's going to be having fantasies about all the beautiful ladies on the sideline in DC. That's what he's playing for this year. It's not wins. I'll tell you that.
No, but I'm saying he's going to put up huge fantasy points.
Yes.
You're looking for fantasy points.
No, I was thinking more about what his fantasies were looking like, and I know what the fantasies of a young man in Washington, D.C. look like. He's not thinking about basketball this year. He's just put it in the hoop, make it look good, and have fun after the game, because it's going to be a rough season for the Wizards.
Yeah. All right. I don't know if we need to say much more. All right. We got two teams left, and one of them is the Orlando Magic, who won one fewer game than the Wizards last year to finish 13th in the conference with 34 wins. What's going on with the Magic? Well, they haven't made a tremendous amount of changes, and they added Anthony Black from Arkansas, was their top pick, and Anthony Black, great young talent, but struggles as a shooter, so might be a while before he is effective. They also added Jet Howard, who was another lottery pick that they added. Jet Howard doesn't struggle as a shooter. He struggles at everything else. So Jonathan Isaac, are we going to see Jonathan Isaac ever again? Who knows? So hopefully he could come back healthy this year. They added Joe Ingles. Ingles didn't play for them last year, right? He was on the Bucks. Yeah, right. So they added Joe Ingles. I don't know if there's much more that they've done that's different. But they still have the core. Some really, really talented players that we liked in college, such as Jalen Suggs and Paulo Banchero. And Banchero certainly is on the right trajectory. Franz Wagner is definitely on the right trajectory. Suggs has surprised me by not yet really looking like he's going to be a great NBA player. But he's still young. I think he's 21. So we shall see. What do you think of the Magic?
Yeah, this is that mystery team I was talking about, Rich.
Right.
you're probably going to laugh at me because you're a Sixers fan, but people have not been talking about Markelle Fultz either. He didn't even make your list, but the improvement that he's shown is very promising.
Yeah.
Markelle Fultz fits that team in a very unique way. You talked about, like maybe the struggles of Jalen Suggs. We're going to have to be patient with him. I think ultimately he's more of like a Avery Bradley type guy in the league. But I think Fultz has another level he can go up to this year. I think we're going to see Franz Wagner go up a level this year. I think Banchero, the USA team, may have unlocked a little something with him as far as playing more small ball center, or fading into it with, your occasional Wendell Carter minutes, who I also enjoy. I think he's a scrappy center. I just think this team has too many pieces to not contend in their division. And with the number of games that they're splitting up among the Wizards, the Hawks, the Hornets, and the Heat, they could make enough wins out of that to make the playoffs. I think this is my 8 seed. Maybe sneaking up into the 7, maybe even 6 seed.
Yeah. Well,
I just think they're really solid.
Yeah, I definitely think they could challenge Atlanta and maybe get close to that 500 mark. I don't know if I'm yet ready to declare them a playoff team. We'll see when we do our fearless forecast. But yeah, you're right. I mean, the starting lineup of Fultz, Anthony, Wagner, Banchero, and Carter, or maybe some other combination. It's where it gets iffy is guys like Suggs, the rookies coming in, Howard and Black, Isaac, off the bench. None of those guys. I mean, Isaac looked like he was going to be at least like an all NBA defender. But you're going to need those guys to give you some solid contributions. So yeah, by the way, this team loves their Michigan products. I wasn't crazy about where they drafted Howard last year. And the year before, they took Caleb Houston, and Wagner was a Michigan, and Mo Wagner was a Michigan.
They like their Wolverines out there.
Indeed, they do. All right. So the final team is the Charlotte Hornets, who were the next to last team in the East with just 27 wins. Of course, they had their share of injury problems last year, including LaMelo Ball. To my knowledge, I actually haven't heard a lot of health updates on LaMelo, but I can only assume that since we're not hearing a lot about it, that he should be good to go. Now, Cody Martin, who was also missed most of last season, I heard there were some concerns about how healthy he was going to be this season. Of course, the team had a plethora of draft picks. They drafted Brandon Miller, 2nd overall. They brought in Amari Bailey, 2nd rounder. They brought in Nick Smith Jr. from Arkansas late in the 1st round, and also added James Nagy, who it doesn't look like they're going to sign, and they're going to use him as a draft and stash. I'm not sure I agree with that move, just because I think this is a young team that's going nowhere, so why not let him, get some action, at least as a two-way guy. So right now their two ways are Amari Bailey. I didn't quite get that one either. Why not put Amari Bailey on the regular roster? But anyway, and their other two-way guy is Leaky Black, so they could sign one more two-way guy. So what else has changed with this team? Well, they're going to have Miles Bridges this year, assuming he stays out of trouble, and they brought back PJ Washington, signed him to a 3-year deal. So what do you think? We got a lot of new faces in terms of rookies. We got Bridges back. We got Ball back. Hopefully Cody Martin back. seems like this team should, I mean, for the previous 2 years, this is a team that would usually be like the 8th, 9th seed and then get walloped in the play-in games.
Yeah, I love Miles Bridges. I think a big part of why I thought they were going to suck so badly last year was the fact that he wasn't going to be there. When LaMelo Ball and Bridges are on the court together, I think this team has a clear style of play. They have a clear second option behind Ball, and you could argue that Bridges is actually the better scorer, maybe their primary option most times. I still like Terry Rozier. I'm waiting for him to end up on a more of a contender type team. I still think that the Celtics made a huge mistake letting him go in free agency. I still find this team to be like a little bit of like an episode of like The Odd Couple, where like you've got Steve Clifford coaching this team of guys that do nothing but run, pass the ball flashily, and dunk the ball. And it's just like, this is not like, it's a miracle he hasn't had a heart attack just watching LaMelo's shot selection. They seem to love each other. It's so odd. But I'm mainly excited to see Miles Bridges back on the court. I love the trajectory that he was going on. And I loved him at Michigan State. I love to see that like his statements seem like he's been doing some growing. We want to see a healthy LaMelo Ball season. It's been a while since we've had one of those. He's kind of turning into like the modern Steph Curry with his ankle issues.
Oh, yeah.
And it's not encouraging to see, his older brother dealing with such bad knee issues.
Mhm.
So definitely worry about his trajectory in terms of health. I'd love to see a healthy season from him. That being said, this team's just not good enough. Like, they're going to be fun to watch. They're going to have some nights where they look like world beaters. And then, on the off nights when they're not on a national television game, they're going to get their asses kicked. And that's just how it's going to be in Charlotte. Really like Mark Williams. He was probably one of the most underrated rookies last season. You mentioned him.
We were talking about him maybe being added to the Olympic team.
I wouldn't doubt it. He's got the size. People probably don't appreciate just how big he is. He has Embiid type center size.
And nice athleticism mixed with it.
Excellent rim protector already in his young career. He's going to be a great lob threat for LaMelo to play with. Really like his trajectory. And we'll see, with our rookie friend, we got to see a little bit of his personality over the summer league. We got to see a little bit of his game. Yeah, our friend Brandon Miller, just another guy to add to the roster that's going to give Steve Clifford a heart attack. I think he's going to have a solid season, but he's not exactly going to be my pick to win Rookie of the Year or anything like that. He's going to be struggling with efficiency for most of the season, I would imagine.
Yeah. Like he did in Summer League.
Yep, same thing. But it's just a question mark of the team. If the guys that they have in-house hit hard, maybe they're sneaking into the playoffs, but it's hard to see this team, raising their ceiling anytime soon. I just don't know. I don't see the trajectory to how that happens.
Yeah, I think this team's going to be better than next year for sure. Just, with the guys, the veterans that should be coming back, assuming they can stay healthy. And, I don't know. Miller's probably the only rookie that's going to see a lot of playing time. So, but yeah, and he's eventually going to weave his way in there in place of an aging Gordon Hayward. So I think this team can get back to where they were, which was, right on the edge of the playoffs and probably getting walloped in the play-in game. And then from there, they got to add another piece or two, but definitely have a lot of young talent. And the key is going to be, players like Ball staying healthy, and Bridges staying out of trouble. All right. So that's it for this week, folks. As always, I want to thank all of our listeners, and I want to thank our special guest, Erik Reynolds II, for joining us. And if you ever missed an episode, you can always get caught up at hoopsprospects.com. You can also reach out to us on social media or email us at admin@hoopsprospects.com. If you send us some questions, we'll answer them in our mailbag. We'll be back next week to talk about the Western Conference. And of course, we'll have our usual college and NBA notebooks to go along with that. But we'll preview the West. Hopefully we can keep Doc around for more than one division. And in a couple of weeks, we'll have Drew back and we'll have Jake back. So we'll have a full house. We'll be firing on all cylinders for the start of NBA. Should be around the start of NBA training camp, which is in about 2 weeks. So any final thoughts, Cameron?
Nah, Rich, just excited to get that off-season's grade article out.
Yes.
Talking about it for months.
Yes.
We swear it's real. It's not a deep fake.
It will definitely be out by next week, no doubt. But it's going to be good. And the thing of it is it's always been evolving, because things have been changing with an example, something I had to add I added last night was about Christian Wood signing with the Lakers. So, and then people are popping up out for the season that we didn't know before. So yeah, it's evolving, but it will be a detailed, thorough breakdown of what to expect in training camp in the upcoming season. So it will be well worth the wait.
It will be. It's gonna be nice to have another full year. I'm excited to stick around too.
Yes.
Yes. I had to step out for a while, step down from the podcast for a while last year. I'm gonna be around. Gonna be chopping it up, talking a little college ball, a little NBA ball. I think it's gonna be a good year for the podcast and for the website too. So
yes.
We got a lot.
I am very thankful to have you full-time on the show. Yeah. It's been a pleasure. I think we click well.
Yeah, man. We got to keep it interesting.
Yeah. We'll keep it interesting. We'll get Drew back on the show talking about Gonzaga and the Warriors, and we can make jokes about him.
Oh yeah. That'll be good.
Poor Drew. He's basically running Menlo Sports right now.